Folks, the meeting will begin shortly as soon as the board joins. Thanks for your patience.
Okay, it looks like we've got a panelist. Todd, I see that we have the Q&A on. Is there a way to turn that off?
Let me check.
Thank you.
I think that's been defeated. I don't think it's local, just small session.
Okay, thank you for doing that. All right. Let's see, let me just do a quick check. Okay, I see the board's on. I'm going to call this meeting to order. The Orange County Board of Education pledges to its citizens to conduct its business in a courteous and productive manner, showing respect for fellow board members, staff, and citizens. The board asks its citizens to conduct themselves in the same courtesy towards both school personnel and each other. As per board policy, Robert's Rules of Order will be used to conduct the meetings. A moment of silence will be observed before each meeting. In addition to the moment of silence at each meeting held at a school site, the board will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. The board asks that you check your cell phones and other electronic devices to be certain they are either turned off or on vibrate to avoid interruption of the meeting. All right. We'll now have a moment of silence. I would just like to ask everybody to keep in your thoughts to all that's going on in our community, our nation, and our world, especially the Black Lives Matter. We just take one moment. All right. Dr. Felder, do we have recognitions tonight?
Hi, Mr. Atherton. Good evening, board. And indeed, we do have recognitions tonight. I am so pleased to recognize Ms. Annika Openwall, who is the 2019-2020 Teacher of the Year for Orange County Schools. A little bit about Annika. She has a Master of Arts in Teaching from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, as well as a Bachelor of Arts in Romance Languages, Spanish, and Psychology at the same university. She has been a teacher in the district for 5 years. She, among her many accomplishments, she's a member of the Foreign Language Association of North Carolina. She's coordinated school-wide cultural explosion initiative. She's developed and led professional development for the district. She even wrote a chapter in a book, upcoming book, and that chapter is, or the book's title is How We Take Action, Social Justice in K-16 Language Classrooms. And she was also Middle School Teacher of the Year at the Student Youth Summer Academy in 2014. There were so many positive, wonderful words that were shared with regards to Ms. Openwall. Some of them include that she embodies so many qualities that make her an outstanding teacher, but it's her ability to build strong, authentic, trusting relationships with her students and their families and her colleagues that shines so brightly and underscores all of her work. She really gets to know her students and encourages them to get to know her as well. I've actually had an opportunity. She invited me to her classroom, and I participated in a lesson, and it was great. So I've actually seen her skill set up front and personal. She is teaches at Gravely Hill Middle School, where again, she's a world language teacher and an ESL teacher. And other comments about Ms. Openwall include, she makes her class feel like family. And again, I actually have experienced that over the years. In Mrs. Openwall's class, it was noticed that she always has a smile on her face, even when she's not feeling well or isn't having a good day. She tries her best to keep on pushing us, meaning the students, to be the best that they can be. So again, congratulations to Ms. Openwall on this wonderful honor, as well as to her colleagues. Her two colleagues who were finalists, I want to mention them as well. Ms. Cassie Rooney, ELA teacher at CW Stanford, and Brooke Connor, English teacher at Orange High School. So again, congratulations to all of our teachers of the year, and especially to Ms. Alpenwell, who represents the whole district as Teacher of the Year. So congratulations. Okay.
Fantastic.
Yes.
All right. Next, we have the agenda adoption.
Mr.
based on-
Chair,
Oh,
regarding the agenda adoption, could I'd like to make a motion that we suspend B6 and policy 2310 for tonight's meeting only, just sort of as an insurance policy so that all of the speakers will have an opportunity to speak.
Second.
so could we say more on this? There's no limitation on a regular meeting for comments. Each person can speak for 3 minutes.
Oh, that's,
Right.
well, good. Well, if
Right,
that's
so
the
we're-
case, Skip, you could just carry out the motion.
Right. The work session is, you're absolutely correct on a work session. There would be a limit of 1 hour, but there's no limit tonight.
Yeah, well, according to B6 and policy 2310, the board chair has sole authority to stop or whatever. And I just wanted to assure the public that we wouldn't stop public comment. That is all.
Absolutely. Absolutely, we're not. All right. So the agenda adoption, there was a request by a board member to amend the adoption to the agenda adoption to have board comments added after public comments, and also revising the resolution on racial violence to an informational item. Motion on that?
Do we not need to do something about Ms. Stevens' motion?
Ms. Stevens,
I was just saying, see, there's a motion on the floor.
yes.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. I do think that I've looked at it as, this is Jonathan, it's consistent with policy that all speakers would be able to speak during a regular meeting. That's consistent with policy. So while it might not be required, there's no harm in moving forward with the motion. So I would just suggest that we proceed with it.
All right, let me go through. We have a motion, a second. So Ms. Stevens has the motion. The second is Hillary McKenzie. Dr. Halkiotis?
Would you restate Brenda's motion again, please?
Okay, I will. Oh, I'll restate it. I just said I would like to suspend B6, B as in boy, 6, and policy 2310 for tonight's meeting only. And Steve, what that does is it just says that we're going to allow all the speakers to speak.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
That's all that is.
Okay, Dr. Knight?
Could I interject one thing on that? If we could just, instead of suspend that entire section, Ms. Stevens, if we could just leave your motion as to allow all speakers to speak, because there's language in there about
Right.
that regulates what people can say.
Right.
So would that be,
Right.
okay. So
And that is what I said to Steve, allow all speakers to speak.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, I'm good with that.
so that's the motion.
Yes.
Okay, Dr. H?
Yes.
Okay. Sarah Smiley?
Yes.
Tony McKnight?
Yes.
Hillary McKenzie?
Yes.
Brenda Stevens?
Yes.
And Chair votes yes. All right. Second is the agenda adoption with recommended changes to move board reports up to after public comment and changing resolution to information versus action.
So Will, Will,
Yes.
are you talking about our conversation for tabling the resolution on racial violence?
Yours plus one other.
Okay, because I wasn't interested in making it an information item. I was interested in removing it from the agenda.
That could be done too, if we have a motion for that.
Well, I motion to remove the resolution on racial violence from the agenda because I think that we need to be a board founded in action rather than words.
I second that motion. This is Brenda.
Okay, so just to be clear on the motion, you're wanting to adopt the agenda as is with removing the resolution from the agenda.
Yes.
Okay.
Does that also include moving when board comments are, just so that there's clarity on that?
That was not my motion.
I was the one that had requested that, and I'll just say I'm fine leaving that at the end
Okay.
and leaving the agenda as is. I thought board members might want to say some things, but I think
So we have
say
Hillary,
things when we discuss.
we have Hillary with the motion, Brenda with the second, Tony McKnight. Okay. Yes. Sarah Smiley,
Yes.
Brenda Stevens. Brenda,
Yes.
okay. Dr. Halkiotis,
Yes.
Hillary McKenzie,
Yes.
and chair votes yes as well. Okay, we have adopted agenda. We will now move to public comments. For the
So, I'm sorry, Mr. Atherton, before we do that, we had one other set of recognitions, and those are CTE recognitions. And so we have Shannon Braxton joining us, and would certainly like to give her that opportunity to recognize our staff. So, Shannon?
Shannon, you're unmuted now.
Can you hear me? Can I get a confirmation?
Yes, we can hear you.
Got it.
Perfect. Thank you. So I'm thankful to get to just share a few things that have been going on in career and technical education and the cultural arts of Orange County. So just a quick recognition ceremony tonight. The let's see, there we go. We always have a Career and Technical Education Student Award at the end of the fall and the spring semesters. This year, we did not get to have that live, but we did have a recognition ceremony via social media on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook the week of May 26th. This PowerPoint in its entirety is on the Orange County Schools Career and Technical Education website. It's about 6 minutes long, and I would love for all of you to click and see all the great work that's going on with students in Orange County schools at all of our schools. FFA at Orange High School always has a huge banquet at the end of each school year, and this slideshow is usually developed by students to recognize all the events of the year. And this presentation in its entirety is on the Orange County Schools Career and Technical Education webpage, and it's also on social media. I just would love for you to see all the good things that students have been doing. Internships that lead to employment. Orange County Schools Career and Technical Education truly is learning that works for students. These are two students that have been working as interns at Capitol Ford Hillsborough, and they have been hired full-time. And Sean Murdy from Cedar Ridge High School is actually not only going to be working full-time, but also going to school. Capitol Ford of Hillsborough is supporting him in that endeavor. We had two groups that we wanted to recognize that didn't get recognized in the CTE Awards. A student from A.L. Standback was placed top 10 in her category. She was able to do a virtual competition, and we were really excited about that. And for the first time ever, there was the state FFA Horse judging, CDE, was done virtually, and Orange County Schools at Orange High School received first place in that event. The teacher shares that was a very interesting event for a horse judging contest to be virtual. But you know what? We're making it work. I'd like to highlight these two students from Cedar Ridge who completed their career and college promise pathways. And these three students not only will graduate this week with a high school diploma, but they're also going to graduate with their 2-year associate's degree from community college. In the cultural arts world, be on the lookout for lots of virtual art shows. Hillsborough Elementary has already published theirs. It's also on the Orange County Schools Cultural Arts webpage. This is Gravelly Hill Middle, and there's 3 links for each of the 3 grades, and Orange High School. And again, keep your eyes posted. There's going to be more virtual art shows coming your way, showing the great work of students. I'd like to just highlight 2 of our cultural arts staff. Last meeting, you heard about Josh Shavanovich. Just wanted to highlight him one more time, Central District Band Director of the Year. And Michael Paps at A.L. Standback is going to be serving a multi-year term representing the North Carolina Bandmasters. And then lastly, all things career technical education and the arts can be found in our Reports of the People newsletters, also on our Twitter and Instagram accounts, and on our new updated career and technical education and cultural arts websites. And one last one that's kind of buried there is Orange High School Panther Regiment Marching Band was a finalist in the WRAL Top Marching Band Contest. Just wanted to give you a few highlights in the career and technical education and the cultural arts world. Thank you for letting me present.
Thank you, Ms. Braxton. That's fantastic. It's always great to hear about all of our students' accomplishments and our staff. Thank you so much for taking the time. All right. We're now to the public comments. During the public comments, we will have a translator that will help. Dr. Felder is also going to help with helping us track all of the people who would like to speak, along with Mr. Jones to coordinate this. This will probably be one of our largest that we've had. So with that, we'll get started. Okay, Dr. Felder, who is first on our list?
So first is Mr. Chase Driggers.
Okay, Todd, could you unmute?
He's now unmuted and live.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Perfect. So first, thank you for allowing us to participate in the public comment tonight. Specifically, we want to, my goal is to speak regarding the proposed removal of the Spanish programs from our elementary schools. Anybody else getting a lot of feedback? Kind of distracting. Sorry. So I just want to say now, in the current climate, more than ever, we have to be committed. And this goes back from the call today. We have to be committed to equity, excellence, and access. And removing the Spanish programs from our elementary schools is a direct contradiction of that goal. Tonight, you'll likely continue to hear individuals speak in defense of the Spanish programs in our elementary schools based upon what those programs have done historically, but I'd like to draw your attention more to the future. So first, I'd like to say that parents, we understand that the schools face continued budget issues. You make difficult budget decisions on a year after year basis. Today, I reached out to the Orange County manager and proposed new property tax assessment plans be earmarked for our school system. And whether or not that comes through, I just hope it serves as an indicator that parents want to be a part of the solution rather than just coming to you and stating a problem. But looking ahead at the 2021 local operating budget requests, we see that there are 3 focus areas for our students, which are literacy, climate and culture, and stakeholder engagement. And I'm going to take some lines from the budget proposal. So literacy is a civil right. It is the ability to read, write, listen, speak, and think critically across all disciplines. For our students to be able to engage effectively in the society they live in, we must ensure that they are literate. And last time I checked, Spanish was a discipline. And Spanish is an ingrained part of our everyday society, and we should make sure that our students get an early exposure and appreciation of that language. Additionally, we're looking at climate and culture, which plays out for our students as social and emotional learning. And social and emotional learning plays out for students as the process through which children feel and show empathy for others and demonstrate cultural sensitivity, among other things. Creating that empathy requires having an appreciation and consideration of the differences and similarities of another culture in comparison to one's own. How can our children do this without the exposure to those different cultures that our Spanish programs provide? Additionally, and this is a quote that I'm taking here, according to John Hattie, an education researcher, the effect of parental engagement over a student's school career is equivalent to adding an extra 2 or 3 years to that student's education. Our Spanish teachers are direct points of contact with our non-English speaking families. By removing these Spanish teachers from the schools, you also remove or diminish the ability of these parents to meaningfully participate in the education of their child. Thus, by removing the Spanish teachers, you are making the path less equitable for these students. In addition to these 3 areas above, we also know that equity is a goal going forward. And equity in Orange County schools has been defined as each and every student having what they need to succeed academically and participate responsibly in our community. It's also identifying and removing barriers to access to resources, opportunities, support, rigorous instruction, healthy environments, and caring adults. I fail to see how removing the Spanish program from our schools furthers these goals. I guess that's my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Felder, who's next?
Kathleen Dawson.
Okay. Todd, could you unmute? So
Should I go to the next person?
I think only the people listed with items next to their names are signed up to speak. Can you confirm that, Todd?
That's column AC. It looks like the next person up is Spring Dawson McClure.
Got it.
Unmute.
Okay. Now I see how this works.
And Spring Dawson McClure is now unmuted.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thanks so much for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. Thank you, Ms. Stevens, for ensuring that all public comments could be heard. And thank you, Ms. McKenzie, for moving that this is a board of action and not just of words. I stand with you on both of those sentiments. I think the most important thing for me to say tonight is that I think at this time, for myself as a white woman and for the white members of the board, we have to listen to Black voices. We have to center Black perspectives, and we have to be ready to take actions, courageous and equity promoting actions that we have not yet taken up to this point. I wanted to speak most directly to the resolution, which is now no longer on your agenda, and also to the budget considerations and recognizing that you have tough choices in front of you. I'm also reaching out to the Orange County commissioners, and I just want to urge you as the Board of Education to ask the commissioners to delay their vote on the budget, to give yourselves and them more time to take a really close look at the budget in this current context, knowing what is required of you as leaders and public officials, to give more time to really figure out how to fully and properly fund schools so that equity is possible, not just something that we talk about, so that there's not pitting different issues against each other. So it seems really, really problematic to pit against literacy, the Spanish program, Spanish interpreters, real policies that are related to equity, that are related to centering the voices of Black and Brown families in our community. I'm sure there's a better solution than choosing between efforts that could do one or the other. And I hope that you're willing to look with the county commissioners at the funding of police and sheriffs in our town and in our county. I hope you're willing to consider the possibility of removing the police presence in our schools and really radically shifting the funding of policing toward the funding of our students and what is truly called for in our schools at this time. Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right. Who do we have next?
Mr. Jose Cisneros.
You could unmute.
Señor Cisneros, ¿usted necesita intérprete?
No, está bien. I can speak English.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Jose Cisneros. I'm a representative of Latinx Ed. We're a nonprofit, and we have several chapters in. We have a chapter in Orange County, and a lot of our students expressed concern over the new proposal to essentially, I think, cut the Spanish program. So our main concern, I think, is because a lot of our students have gone through the Spanish programs and they've seen the benefit. And I think later on, we're going to have some parents speak about the benefits they saw in their students. Something else I wanted you to consider. I was a former dual language Spanish teacher. So I was able to see the benefits of the Spanish program and a lot of our students who went off to high school and really excelled, not only in Spanish classes or regular classes, but in AP classes as well. And I want to echo the message expressed so far, I think, with regards to this proposal and how we really want to, I think about equity in all forms for all those students and how all students can benefit from this Spanish program. So just wanted to speak on behalf of our students and some of the concerns they've expressed to us. I really urge you to reconsider this proposal for the Spanish program. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for taking the time. Next.
Ms. Mandel.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. I'd like to comment about the proposed cut to fundings for the Spanish program. I have two children who attend elementary school in Orange County schools, and they have both benefited from the Spanish program by starting to have an understanding from very young ages that humans come from different cultures and speak different languages. And it's a very difficult thing for young children to understand this if they are not exposed on a regular basis to other languages and other cultures. Simultaneously, we all still need to ensure that we close the gap in English proficiency. And while there's always difficult decisions to make with a limited budget, I request that the board members urge the county commissioners to delay the budget approval to help identify funding so that we can simultaneously increase English proficiency and reduce achievement gaps without also cutting funding for a very important program in elementary schools. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, next.
Sonia D.
Todd?
I'm having difficulty connecting. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Please go ahead.
That's great. The computer audio is disconnecting, and when you turned off the chat, I couldn't tell y'all that it was kept disconnecting. It would help if you can turn it on so we can tell you about these issues. So I wanted to speak about the Spanish program and the benefits as well, how I looked at the last year's August 15th 2019 student achievement assessment, and it showed that Black and Latinx students are needing the most support. And so considering that and connecting that to what we know about institutional racism, how our social conditions and historical and current policies shape the realities for folks and achievement and opportunities, it's very important when thinking about equity that the resources are spent to make sure those achievement gaps are closed. And I was looking, I also hope that money can be found elsewhere, and that.
Did we lose you? Do you see Miss Sonia on? Has she fallen off the call?
She is still listed as an attendee. She remains unmuted, but I'm not hearing her in the audio.
Okay. Miss Sonia, we will go to the next person, but we will come back to you at the end to give you the opportunity in case your audio comes back. Okay. Who do we have next, Dr. Felder?
Alice Doble.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Alice Dalbo, and I am the Director of Post-Secondary Opportunity at Latinx Ed. I am speaking against the proposal to eliminate the elementary teacher Spanish positions. While I realize that there will be some painful budget cuts required in school budgets, this proposal is directly in conflict with the advancement of equity in OCS. The growth of Spanish-speaking students in the Orange County schools, and indeed across the state of North Carolina, has changed the local community, and the schools must respond to this change. We need to invest in curriculum and instruction in which Latinx students can see their heritage reflected, and our non-Latinx families need to learn the powerful stories and rich culture that our Spanish-speaking families bring to our communities. When Orange County Schools created these programs, you made this investment. And yet this proposal sends the message that these programs and all they represent are not in fact essential to educating students today. You are saying that these programs are expendable. I have noted that the proposal of cutting the teacher positions will allow you to increase the availability of translators. But if there was ever a time to double down on equity in schools to provide more meaningful cross-cultural learning opportunities, this is that time. I strongly encourage you to see these budgetary items as both Spanish teachers in the elementary schools and more translator availability. I have been on school improvement teams, and best practices for engaging immigrant families is always a topic of discussion. For Spanish-speaking immigrants, this is a way to engage students and families. And if you make these cuts, you must consider the message it sends to those families that find these opportunities one of their best opportunities for engagement with their children's learning. I work with students who tell me repeatedly how having an organization dedicated to uplifting the voices of Latinx youth has impacted their lives. They write their college essays about attending high schools where they might be one of the few Latinx students in their classes. When Carolina's supplemental application essay asks them what they would change about the place where they live, they write about wishing that more resources were dedicated to their community and to their stories. Don't take a step backwards by eliminating these programs. Now more than ever, their value should be clear. Finally, I note that your school district goals all start with Orange County schools will be the first choice for families. Given that the dual language program in particular has a waiting list and families move to be eligible for this program, cutting this particular program is at cross purposes with your goals. My children attend Durham public schools, and I know keeping students in the public school system is of the utmost importance for the budget. How many families will you lose to charter and private schools if you choose to axe the very programs that keep Orange County schools as their first choice? Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening with you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Okay, who do we have next?
Antonio Alanis.
Todd, if you could mute.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Antonio Alanis. I am El Centro Hispano's education manager. El Centro Hispano is a Latino nonprofit organization with students and families currently benefiting from our classes, such as tutoring and Padres Comprometidos. Today, I'm representing El Centro Hispano, standing in solidarity with parents and staff, urging the Orange County Board of Education to continue Spanish language classes in its elementary schools. The Spanish program live serves the students and community's best interest. Spanish classes will create equity and will continue to create equity for students academically, abilities, which will carry over benefits to other classes like English. Also, children of all backgrounds will learn to speak Spanish as they begin to recognize the value in a multicultural society. Tonight, excuse me, I want to say that El Centro Hispano encourages the Board of Education to continue Spanish language classes alive. We must continue these. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time. Okay, who's next?
Specials one.
Miss Amy Malinowski?
Hi, yes, I'm here. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much for taking my comment. I wanted to speak to, oh, sorry. Out at New Hope Elementary and a rising kindergartner as well. And I know this decision is one piece of a complex puzzle. I'd first like to quote a line from the proposal's equity impact statement. It states, there's a need to increase literacy achievement in the district, particularly for African American students, Latinx students, economically disadvantaged students, students with disabilities, homeless children, and students in foster care. I would ask that the board provide more details to help us connect the dots between the repurposing of the elementary Spanish teachers and increasing literacy achievement for the aforementioned students, as well as improved language access throughout the district. I want to be sure we remain mindful of the size and scope of our district's system-wide problems with both literacy and language justice. I'd like more information about how these proposed changes specifically will benefit the students who need the resources. For example, how will moving 6 teachers into different positions increase literacy achievements for students who are scoring lower on proficiency tests? I want to be sure we don't lose sight of the number of families in this district who rely on interpretation and translation services. I believe increasing the one district translator position from 10 to 12 months, adding a second translator, and having a bilingual staff member in each school are all positives and can be considered small steps in the right direction. Will the second translator position also be a full-time 12-month position? How does the district plan to comprehensively address its immense district-wide language justice issues? Where can I find information about the district's current interpretation and translation policies and the structure of the system currently used to request and track these services? It seems the current system is made up of piecemeal measures on an ad hoc basis. I would love to see some kind of evaluation of the current system, either via an official audit or through a survey of families who use these services. What organizations and other districts or programs is Orange County looking to as models for improving its translation and interpretation services? I hope the board will consider these questions and many others in its decision-making process, and that members will take seriously the need for substantive and measurable action towards equity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Ms. Clark.
Todd, if you could. Clark.
Great. Good evening, Dr. Felder, Mr. Atherton, and board. My name is Christina Clark, and I'm a Cedar Ridge teacher and the president of the Orange County Association of Educators. I'm here to speak on behalf of the elementary Spanish program and its teachers, many of whom were hesitant to speak out in public for fear of retribution or for seeming ungrateful. Last October, the Juntos Club that I advise at Cedar Ridge volunteered at a beautiful event organized by the Spanish teacher at Cameron Park to celebrate Latinx culture. We made paper flowers and helped the little ones dress up for their dance performances. I saw children and parents of all races coming together because of our elementary Spanish program. These kinds of events and programs we need to be building up, not tearing down and defunding. Research in literacy and cognition shows that second language learning at a young age is critical. Elementary years are literally called the critical age, and second language learning increases literacy and competence in all subject areas. While dual language programs accomplish this most effectively, even regular exposure to another language gives students an edge academically and socially. Not only that, second language learning develops empathy and compassion in children because they gain the capacity to see from another's perspective. If you want any of these studies, you can ask me or any of my theory of knowledge students who learn this in my class every year. Speaking of students, here's what I've heard from them. A former student who has enrolled here says, only having English makes me feel that Spanish is abnormal and we shouldn't speak it. We live in a world where we feel shunned due to our migration here from our homeland, which we only do to give our family a better life here in the States. So a school that makes us feel welcomed and where we aren't embarrassed of our accents or embarrassed we don't fully comprehend what our children's teachers are saying makes us feel and at ease. One of our graduating seniors says, early exposure to Spanish inspired me to take high-level Spanish courses in high school and now pursue a minor in Spanish in college. Exposing children to a second language early on is important because it inspires children to be more inclusive and sparks interest for more important language learning. Elementary Spanish made me, who I am today, a bilingual teacher who worked in the Orange County classroom because that is where I am needed most. The fastest minority in schools speaks Spanish, and if we want to serve our community, all students should be learning Spanish from day one. We do not need more positions in central office at the cost of pulling away friendly, welcoming Spanish-speaking teachers from our school buildings. I know next year may look very different from this year, but we are dismayed that the first significant change you've decided to make is to eliminate a vital resource for our Spanish-speaking families in the elementary schools. Please consult teachers and families to form a better solution. Thank you.
Okay, next is Ms. Hunt.
Good evening. First of all, Jonna Hunt with Pathways Elementary PTA. I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to share our PTA's views. And I will echo most of what we have already heard this evening, so I will be brief. But it is our PTA's sincere displeasure with regard to the potential cancellation of the elementary Spanish program. Elementary Spanish is often a child's first introduction to other cultures outside of their own. This education becomes inclusion, which is needed now more than ever. Additionally, it is my understanding that the ESL teacher in our elementary schools does not always have to be a Spanish speaker. At Pathways, I know that we have relied heavily on our Spanish teachers for translation to provide an inclusive educational environment for our students and their families. Again, we ask that you reconsider the proposed cancellation of the elementary Spanish program. Thank you for your time.
Okay, next is Ms. Sendor.
Let's see, can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, good evening and thank you. I originally intended to comment on the resolution that's now been removed from the agenda. But my comment was to emphasize the exact reason that it was removed, which is that the board propose actionable policy to work for equity and dismantle racism in our schools. I'm speaking because of the students I had the honor to employ and work alongside as director of Anatoth Community Garden in Cedar Grove. For over 6 years, I heard the students of color in the group process painful, traumatic experiences of racism in the school system. And I'm not here to speak for these students, but instead to highlight again the importance of intentional, respectful listening to Black students, families, teachers, and staff to create policies and cultures where students of color can thrive. And I also want to emphasize the importance of the district's focus on equity and English literacy. In these challenging times, it's especially important to strengthen rather than sacrifice equity priorities. It's also an important time not to pit justice-related priorities against each other. We've heard directly from members of the Latinx community tonight about the importance of the Spanish language program in the elementary schools. And so I asked the school board to request a pause, a budget extension from the county, and for the school board to urge the county to examine other ways to increase funding, ideally to strengthen the literacy efforts even more while preserving Spanish language programs. And I'm also aware that we're seeing this outpouring of support for the Spanish program tonight. And I also hear the call to sustain this same level of energy and commitment to support literacy efforts and other anti-racist pro-equity initiatives. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So next is Miss Xavier.
I see a Mark Xavier, but not an Emily Xavier in the attendee list. Sorry, I'm not seeing an Emily Xavier in the attendee list in order to unmute.
Okay, let's move.
I move on to the next person.
Yeah, let's move to the next.
Okay, that would be Miss Annika Openwall.
Now unmuted.
Good evening. This is Annika Openwall. I am the Spanish teacher at Gravelly Hill Middle School, and as it was mentioned 5 days ago, I was awarded Orange County Schools Teacher of the Year. This remarkable honor brought validation to my work to incorporate the 5 National World Language Standards, or the 5 C's, into my classes: communication, cultures, connections to other disciplines, comparisons to cultures and other languages, and using Spanish in our communities. 2 days after this incredible honor, the possible elimination of our district's elementary Spanish program was on the school board meeting agenda. I hope you noticed the irony in that after being awarded for my work teaching Spanish, I now must justify the value of teaching Spanish at all levels. The district does have a Herculean task of making everything work financially and safely in the coming year. However, I urge them to develop an alternative than to eliminate the program. Here are 3 reasons. Number 1, the district emphasizes the focus on literacy instruction for students, especially those from underserved backgrounds. Spanish is literacy. Students acquire reading, writing, listening, and speaking skills in Spanish classes. Studies show that students studying a second language reinforce their understanding of their first language, improve general communication skills, and add vocabulary to their first language. It therefore does not take away from literacy, but rather adds and supports. Spanish classes also affirm the home culture of Latinx students and give them the opportunity to develop proficiency in the language of their family. Number 2, students that begin Spanish with me in middle school, having had Spanish in elementary school, come with basic skills and confidence that students coming from other districts without elementary Spanish do not have. Our students already understand what is required of them to learn a language, and they are often very motivated to continue learning and to build on what they learned in their elementary school years. As adults, we know that the best time to learn a language is when we are babies. But when this is not possible, the second best age is elementary school. When students acquire these basic skills early, I'm able to take them farther in the language, affording them a greater chance at using it effectively in their futures. Number 3, intercultural competence must take a higher precedence in education. Grade level teachers don't always have time to focus on this, but language classes do, and it's part of our standards. Piaget and other researchers found that the age of 10 is a crucial time in the development of attitudes towards other countries and groups perceived by children as other. Language teachers, not language apps, help students learn about empathy, tolerance, and acceptance of different cultures. Studies show that children who have studied another language are more open toward and express more positive attitudes towards the cultures associated with that language. As a Spanish teacher and as Orange County Schools Teacher of the Year, I urge you to do everything possible to maintain or grow our elementary Spanish program. I know many of you verbally affirm the importance of language learning, but I urge you to demonstrate this through your actions by protecting this program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so next is Ms. Rosales.
Hello, can y'all hear me? Hi. My name is Jasmine Rosales, and I am the Orange County Program Coordinator for Latinx Ed. I've had earlier colleagues speak about, the importance of keeping this program, the Spanish programs in the elementary schools, and I do as well also agree to keep them and reconsidering to not terminate them. These are really beneficial for the students. Working with these some of the students at Orange High School, they have expressed some of their concerns as well as their families about removing this program. As my own personal story, I have been through a dual language. Although this is Spanish programs, I do think it is really beneficial for students to keep to have this program and to also just expose other students about cultures. And it's very important for, upcoming generations to learn and, to know a second language. It is really beneficial, especially I can speak for myself. I've had it's helped me when I travel, when I'm currently in grad school, jobs. It's really helpful. And I do believe that, being able to continue to have these opportunities for our students will have a lot of benefits instead of taking them away. So I really do hope you guys reconsider about not terminating this program. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so next would be Mr. Ponce Vasquez.
Hey, I'm Jose Ponce Vasquez, and I'm a scholar of the Somos OHS. It's a chapter of the Latinx program. I'm here today to urge Orange County School Board to reconsider their proposal to terminate Spanish programs in elementary schools. As it states in your proposal, you would like to repurpose elementary Spanish teachers' positions to fill other teacher vacancies due to the anticipated budget shortfalls. This proposal sends the wrong message to our students, families, and communities. In a time where there is a renewed energy for all of us to commit to taking steps toward equity every day, it is unwise to propose bilingual and bicultural learning as optional in our schools. These programs create a more inclusive environment and benefit everyone. We should be discussing on expanding these opportunities for students, not eliminating them. I know this is important because of my personal experience on this issue. I have seen various students struggle coming from different countries and not knowing the English language, and the Spanish teachers are always there to help through everything. I feel that we continue the need for this, and it has helped me out a lot. I grew up with this program. I'm currently still in high school, and I would like it to keep going for our future generations. And the superintendent herself has stated recently that she made a commitment to our school district that she would focus on equity, excellence, and access for all students, that she is committed to creating a safe, welcoming, inclusive, and supportive environment where all children can reach their full potential. As a representative of Latinx Ed, I have spoken to many students and families about these issues. We are hurt about the message that this budget cut is doing to our community. I hope that you guys as the board and the superintendent reflect on these budget priorities as they make sure they stand by their commitment to equity in Orange County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Ms. Harrell.
Todd? Carol? Todd, is she unmuted?
Sorry, I just dropped off and had to rejoin. Give me a second.
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me? Hear me now.
She's now available. Sorry.
You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. So let me start off by saying that I'm also going to address the proposal to cut Spanish classes from elementary schools. But I first want to address my own personal reaction to the last BOE working meeting, where the board spent a long time discussing how to handle a personal insult along the lines of you need to stop communicating between two board members. All I am aware about in the situation is what I saw during the meeting, and I was appalled at the amount of time that went into the discussion to resolve that issue, and ultimately the vote to not resolve the issue. What was interesting was that it was never discussed publicly, whatever led up to that particular line being said, but I feel fairly certain it wasn't said out of the blue. My guess is that no one is innocent, and there are several that share the blame in the incident. And at this point, it's time to move on. I hope the individual board members learn from past mistakes, take the high road, and move forward with a focus on the children of Orange County. I want to say spending that much time discussing topics regarding personal interactions between board members is absolutely ridiculous, and I hope that this board and future boards figure out how to focus on the actual work at hand and leave their personal grievances at the door. Next, I'd like to address the proposal to cut the Spanish programs at the elementary schools. First, as we strive to create an inclusive environment in Orange County, what kind of message do we think that removing the Spanish program is going to send to our Latinx families? It's especially important for the students that arrive to our school that don't speak English yet. It's a learning classroom where they can go and feel comfortable. And I'm sure it must have a huge impact on building their self-confidence, which is vitally important to their learning. So this boost in self-confidence then has the potential to carry over into other areas of learning. And so one question that I have about this proposal is where else and how else in the curriculum will these students be able to accomplish this? The second issue, and I am from Cameron Park, the Spanish teacher at our school which has already been said, is a huge resource for our Latinx families across the district. If Spanish gets cut, is she going to be moved into a different role? Will she be able to remain at Cameron Park? She is important in connecting with Latinx families and helping them feel comfortable, but also in helping the entire school understand Latinx culture, which is also very important. And so how will this role be fulfilled under the proposed changes, and how will this connection with an important part of our school community be accomplished? How are we going to instill an appreciation for Latinx culture for all of our students? And then my third issue about this is the idea of providing excellent educational opportunities for all students. And someone else has already mentioned, if our budget starts cutting important programs, you're going to incentivize the families that have the ways and means to look for other educational opportunities that provide well-rounded course selection, like charter schools and private schools. And they'll leave our school system and find education elsewhere. And so I think it's important to consider the importance for all students to learn Spanish and for our school system to provide that opportunity. Spanish is the second most spoken language in the United States, and the appreciation for the language and culture starts in elementary schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So next on the list is Ms. Driggers.
Can you hear me?
You're very low, but can you speak up slightly?
How about now?
That's better.
Okay. Dr. Felder and Board of Education members, thank you for allowing me to share my thoughts on the proposed suspension of the Orange County Elementary Spanish program. I have 2 elementary school age children myself, and I'm very proud to be a part of this community. Firstly, let me say that I do not envy the position of the Board of Education members. You are all working hard to try to do more with a decreasing and very stretched budget. That being said, I don't think we can look to solve the budget shortfall by cutting this critically important Spanish program. My gut feeling is this proposal came about in good faith, that there would be negligible impact to families and students. So my goal today is, number 1, to share a snapshot of what a Spanish teacher does in addition to their teaching responsibilities, and number 2, emphasize the unintentional and potentially irreversible consequences that removing this program will have on our children and their families. An elementary Spanish teacher is an essential resource at their school. They have done an outstanding job of building trust and a strong sense of community in our schools. Placing these teachers in other roles, likely outside of the current school that they are in, destroys all that they have accomplished in bringing our families together. From teaching students important cultural lessons about the diverse world in which we live, to volunteering as interpreters during school and after-hours school events and meetings, inspiring a team of volunteers to join together to help put on an incredible festival celebrating Hispanic heritage, and to holding weekly meetings with parents to help them through homeschooling during this pandemic. These are only a few of the ways our Spanish teachers serve our schools and community outside of the classroom. To speak to the consequences of removing this program, I ask you this: how can our Hispanic population feel a sense of trust and belonging when their perhaps strongest connection to the school system, the Spanish teacher, is considered so easily expendable? I come before the board as an ally of our Hispanic families. Yes, is that my time up?
Yes. It was hard to hear, but I was able to hear you. Thank you.
Will, could I make a request that Ms. Driggers, if she's still on the line, if she could email also, if she had that written down, if she could email it to the board as well. I found that hard to hear.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Driggers. Please email the board. You can email me and I will forward it on, or you can email directly the whole board.
I think I'm next.
Next.
Okay, so next is Mr. Venegas.
No. Floribel Venegas is unmuted now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, my name is Glorbo Venegas. I am a program coordinator for Latinx Ed and elementary school ESL tutor, I'm sorry. I am also the daughter of Salvadoran immigrants and a first-generation college student. I'm here today to ask the Orange County School Board to reconsider their proposal for terminating Spanish programs in our elementary schools. As it states in your proposal, you would like to repurpose the elementary Spanish teacher positions to fill other vacancies due to budget cuts. This proposal sends the wrong message to our students, families, and communities. It is unwise to propose bilingual and bicultural learning as optional in our schools, especially considering that Hispanics and Latinos are now the largest minority, which brings about new challenges and opportunities to learn, connect with various backgrounds and cultures of our neighbors, students, consumers, and patients in healthcare settings. We should be discussing how to expand these opportunities for students and not eliminating them. I know this is important because of my own personal experience on this issue. When I reflect on my own elementary school experience, I always think of my elementary ESL teacher. To this day, I still consider her one of the most influential mentors of my educational experience. It was because of her support and encouragement that I was able to complete and place out of the ESL program by the end of my second grade year. By the end of third grade year, I was nominated to be placed into the AIG program at the same elementary school. However, this transition in my education was only possible through the support of my bilingual teachers and resources they provided. This was also the only point in my education where my parents were able to participate in my education directly and freely with my teachers. I wish this had been the case throughout my entire educational journey. This bilingual support allowed me to have higher academic success, but I'm deeply concerned for the students I serve who will not have the same resources I receive and who may require a higher need for these bilingual resources. I offer you the perspective of an ESL tutor who works with students ranging from learning levels of kindergarten to 5th grade. With each one of my students, I am allowed 1 hour once or twice a week to offer support along the ESL teachers. I'm here to tell you that said time and more is needed for each student, as well as their respective teachers, who constantly express the lack of support for these learners. I worry for the future educational opportunities for these students, as they need more resources and more bilingual teachers. I worry for the 1st grader who just transitioned from Mexico into our school system and has been labeled disengaged in class because he is unable to understand his teacher. However, when I communicate with him, I see an intelligent student whose talents can't shine due to the language barrier. I worry for the 5th grader who has been bullied but found the courage to communicate with her tutor because she spoke her native language. I worry that these students and others like them will get lost and fall behind because our schools did not offer fundamental resources to secure their learning and enrichment. The demand for dual language schools will only increase, and our communities will find ways to fulfill these needs, such as charter schools, which may allocate students and funds. Thank you for your time.
Okay, next is Ms. Strong.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Before I start, Emily Xavier was on the phone and she said she was speaking on the phone and couldn't tap in. So I don't, she is still on the phone. And she texted me and said that she's on the phone and that's why you don't see it. I don't know what the logistics are to that, but I just wanted to share that. Can you start my time over, if you will?
Todd, could you start the time now?
Yes.
Thank you. On February 23rd, Ahmaud Arbery was running in a neighborhood as he normally did and was hunted down by three white men. And Breonna Taylor was sleeping in her home on March 13th, and she was killed in her home by police. And we all know on May 25th, George Floyd was killed at the hand of police with the knee on his neck. I know everyone's heard those stories, but I think we can't say them enough. Soon after, protests have erupted in Minnesota and now in every state in our nation. The protests have gotten so strong that almost every country has had a similar protest, all affirming Black lives and saying Black Lives Matter. It's somewhat of a revolution. People are tired. People are tired of being stepped over. People are tired of experiencing pain. People are tired of not being recognized. As I read our resolution, I was saddened because it described Black Lives Mattering. It indicated that Black Lives Matter, but it wouldn't actually say Black Lives Matter. Because I know all too familiar that in this town, the phrase Black Lives Matter is met with a lot of political opposition. As I read the resolution, I wondered, how is it possible that a school board that won't firmly say Black Lives Matter can recognize biases and barriers to education? And how will you be able to challenge intolerance in our district? I also wonder, how is it possible that you can proactively address. Say Black Lives Matter. And now as I hear people speaking out for Spanish language, of course Spanish language is needed in our district, but so is literacy. And Black students have all too often been on the chopping block of every decision that happens in this district where we pit Black students against other students in this district. And I wish all the people that are on this call today advocating for Spanish classes would also advocate for the Black students who have for years not been educated in our district. Some of them have, but many of them don't even recognize that 60% of our Black students in our district leave with an 8th grade education in our district. And that's if, I'm sorry, 60% of the students are not performing well, but leave with a sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Strong.
Next, Del Ward.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Del Ward. I'm a 25-year-old white man. I was raised in Hillsborough, North Carolina, and attended Orange County Public Schools until my sophomore year of high school, when I left due to the gross incompetence of Orange County Public School system. I'd like to start by asking the board a few questions. That first one is, why is it that through my entire schooling as a white boy in your school system, every time I got in trouble and was sent to in-school suspension, I was never escorted by a resource officer? But every time one of my Black peers found themselves in trouble, there was always an officer involved. Why is it that in 8th grade, one of my best friends who happened to be Black was picked up and body slammed by on the school gymnasium floor by a resource officer for having a lighter in his pocket? Why is it that absolutely nothing happened to that resource officer? I see Jason Johnson is on the call. I know he's a forgetful man. I don't know if he forgot that happened while he was a principal at Gravelly Hill. Why is it that throughout my entire time in Orange County Public Schools, I only had one single teacher that was Black? Orange County is tired of hearing your empty promises and platitudes that serve to pacify an angry community. I grew up having mostly Black friends, and I didn't truly understand what racism was until I attended Orange County schools. And it's not just that you are employing racist police officers in those schools, but you are employing racist teachers who vilify and demean Black children. You have teachers who are telling young Black kids that college isn't worth it for them. You have teachers that are afraid of Black students because of their lack of understanding of Black American culture. How can you expect there to be an equal playing field for students of all color when your teachers are scared of every Black student they see? How can you expect to inspire young Black children to become teachers when most of the teachers you employ are white? Social progression, racial equality, and justice starts in the classroom. It starts with you all, each and every one of you, and you are all failing at nearly every facet of that when it comes to educating and protecting Black and brown children in Orange County. Like Ms. Strong said, Black lives matter. Your moment of silence is meaningless until you say that as well. I yield my time back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Ms. Gilby.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Janice Gilreath, Spanish teacher at Cedar Ridge with more than 20 years service in Orange County schools. I'm speaking in favor of preserving the elementary Spanish program. The crucial step of seeking community input before considering the removal of this program was missed. That community includes families of Spanish as second language learners, Latinx families with whom our elementary Spanish teachers have formed relationships, and the teachers of world languages at all levels. I would like to address the use of language learning apps such as Duolingo to replace in-person instruction. There's an app for that is a short-sighted attitude to take in considering the future of this program. These apps can be an effective tool in the language classroom, but they cannot replace the relationship of trust that the language teacher creates with and among the students as they grow in confidence in the language and the shared joy of that moment when a young child makes a connection with the culture or is able to communicate an idea in the language. They cannot replace the adult human who is connecting them with the people around them that are part of the language community that they're learning about, their classmates. Duolingual won't be planning the cultural events where young people can display what they've learned and share their own cultures. Rosetta Stone won't be there to foster friendships and connection between our heritage Spanish speakers and our Spanish learners. Right now, we have an incredible resource that is doing those very things, our elementary Spanish teachers. Tonight's agenda references the statistic that to effectively learn a language, children must spend 30% of their waking time exposed to it. This is an argument for expansion, not elimination of the program. To foster 21st century skills and provide a global education, we need to commit to early second language instruction. This is what secondary language teachers envisioned when we were asked to provide recommendations for how to structure the program before its implementation in 2002. A true FLES program that would eventually transform how second language learning occurred at all levels in the district, because that is what we believed we were tasked to provide. Furthermore, today's reality is that public schools are increasingly in competition with charter, virtual, private schools, and homeschooling. The immersion program at New Hope is a wonderful step, but is limited in space. If we wish to be truly the first choice for families, we need to provide dynamic programs that make us competitive with all of the other educational options out there and that are accessible to all. If we don't, we will not be the choice of many families, which will further deplete our funds and negatively impact education in the district. There is much more I could say about the importance of effective early second language instruction and the impact these teachers have on their schools and how they serve the wider school community, but others speaking here tonight can and have addressed those topics more eloquently and personally than I could. In conclusion, I'm asking the board live up to the motto, first choice for families, and retain the elementary Spanish teachers in their current positions and commit to expanding the program to a true FLES program when fiscal conditions permit. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, next, Amber Bowman.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Dr. Felder and members of the Board of Education. I'm the parent of 3 elementary-age boys and the wife of an Orange High School teacher. I'm extremely concerned that the Spanish language programs may be suspended from the elementary schools in Orange County. Early exposure to other cultures, from the language to the arts to the mere observation of the idea that not everyone in the world speaks English, is critical in reducing the racial and ethnic prejudice in our schools and community. But my boys are not really why I'm speaking tonight. I have learned a lot in these last 2 weeks, and I did not want my silence to be a sign of compliance. I wish we were talking tonight about ideas on how to increase the number of Black and minority teachers in our schools, rather than having to fight to keep the teachers teaching Spanish in our elementary schools, but here we are. Upon learning of this proposal just 4 nights ago, my immediate concern was how will the Latinx families in our school advocate for their children without the connections they rely on. Kristen Driggers has worked to reach out to the Latinx community and has heard their concerns. To give the community a voice, we started a petition to understand the value elementary Spanish programs have in our community. As of tonight, we've obtained over 2,800 signatures. I have now had the opportunity to speak with members of our Latinx community, Spanish teachers as well, and the word echoed over and over again was miedo, or fear. I watched with excitement over these last 2 years with the hiring of a chief equity officer and the commitment of the board to diversity and equity. The equity and education policy unanimously passed by the board in 2019 focuses on fostering a barrier-free environment where all students, regardless of their race, have the opportunity to benefit equally, and that educational equity requires proactive steps to be taken to address institutional barriers. The removal of Spanish language teachers and this program will only increase these institutional barriers. One response may be, well, it's just a temporary suspension. Think for a moment on March 12th, when we learned school as we know it was ending for the year. Who did these families turn to? Was it a translator in a central office? Or was it the friendly faces that had worked with them for months or even years to ensure their children were thriving? To remove the Spanish program in any year would be disappointing, but to do it now with so much uncertainty would be devastating. The members of the board have committed to equity in education, but now the Latinx families in our community are afraid that the promise of equity and closing of the achievement gap echoed over the last 2 years were just words. Let's show our community that we didn't just put some fancy document together saying we care about equity, but that we actually live by those words. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Ivy Barker.
Hi, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Great, thank you so much. First, I wanted to thank Hillary McKenzie for starting this meeting by reaffirming that this board needs to act for racial equity rather than just wordsmithing and playing lip service. So thank you, Board Member McKenzie, for that. About the budget issue, if circumstances were anything else besides what they are, I would be arguing that we need to expand elementary Spanish instruction to increase proficiency, build bridges, and give our Spanish-speaking students a sense of belonging. A few minutes a week of Spanish class for English-speaking students at the elementary level is not enough to really form any kind of proficiency in the language. Given that and how I understand the equity impact analysis as things stand right now in our economic downturn, we can't do everything we want to do, and we really do need to prioritize. As a previous speaker pointed out, literacy is a civil right, and almost all other learning endeavors, including learning Spanish, hinge on the ability to read and write well. We are currently shortchanging our Black students on this front specifically. We're denying them equal access to on-grade level literacy instruction, and as Ms. Strong pointed out earlier, they are graduating with a huge percentage of Black students are graduating with no more than an 8th grade education. This is absolutely unacceptable. It's an emergency. It has to be addressed now. And I appreciate Dr. Felder's position and understand she has to make these tough decisions. And these tough decisions are governed by the resources that the district is allocated. Part of me does feel like this is a false dichotomy, though, and I also agree with previous speakers that this decision pits communities of color against each other, and I just wanted to point out that this is a classic tool of white supremacy, divide and conquer. Is there some way that we could free up the money for both literacy instruction and elementary Spanish instruction from elsewhere in the county budget? Maybe the sheriff's office could have a bake sale to pay for their mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicle, because I can't think of a single reason why we need one of those in Orange County. Perhaps even more practically, we can remove the armed officers from our schools, because it's increasingly clear to me that this form of policing is applied unfairly and serves mainly to widen these opportunity gaps that we're all concerned about tonight, and reinforces the school to prison pipeline. I 100% support Dr. Felder in making the tough decisions, and if it comes down to it, I support her decision to set difficult priorities. It might not be in her power to single-handedly demand the county reallocate funds to prioritize education over policing, but it's in ours as a community. So I'm asking this board to please help us do that by recommending that the Board of County Commissioners delay this budget decision that's happening tomorrow so we can advocate for our schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Holly Dornett.
Hello. So when you say something's first, you mean it's a priority. You put first things first. Orange County says it's the first choice for families, for students, and for teachers, which means that those should be the board's priorities. However, having attended numerous meetings the past year, I have seen this is just words. Just words. In practice, it has become obvious that several members of this board put themselves first. Never was this so evident as the meeting 2 weeks ago, when a squabble between board members was put before the discussion of what our schools may look like next year. I think we all know that remote learning is at least a part of our students' futures next year. The struggles that we have with the board meetings, with them being online. Imagine a third grader going through these same struggles. These things are the focus that our board needs to be had. Many other people tonight have talked about the Spanish program, about the challenges that our students of color face. Those should be our priorities, not the struggles of our board members to get along. Today, I received the final feedback form from my third grader. And the very first item on that report was uses time efficiently. That was before reading. That was before writing. That was before anything else. I asked this board, as you set meeting agendas going forward, as you have discussions about our schools, that you decide what those first things are and what those priorities are, that you use your time efficiently, you quit wasting the time of our students, our parents, and our teachers, and you put first things first. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Elaine Uten.
Uten, yes. Hi, can you hear me? Okay. Great. Okay. Hi, my name is Elaine Uten, and I'm the co-founder of Latinx Education, or Latinx Ed, a nonprofit whose mission is to amplify the leadership and lived experiences of Latinx immigrant families to break down barriers to educational opportunities in North Carolina. We serve Latinx students and families in Orange County, specifically at Orange High School, via a program called Somos Carolina, which means in English, we are Carolina. First off, we stand in unity with the Black community, as Black lives are constantly threatened to the point of their lives, and yet our educational system continues to overlook our community's needs and access to quality education. Black Lives Matter, and we are fighting for equity for all, and today, namely within the classroom. So I'm on this call today to urge the Orange County School Board to reconsider the proposal to terminate Spanish programs in our elementary schools and repurpose elementary Spanish teachers' positions to fill other vacancies due to budget constraints. Having served students in Orange County via our programming, we have heard concerns and disappointment from our families and students as these budget cuts are personal in many ways, by ultimately taking away a program that has benefited many of their families and community members, by bridging cultural understanding with our community at large, and then also ensuring quality language learning, quality Spanish language learning in particular. So right now, our students, families, and communities need bilingual and bicultural education to be a central part of their learning experience. These types of programs are key to creating a more inclusive learning environment, and that is in everyone's favor. So as an alternative, we need to be discussing how to invest in these kinds of opportunities for students instead of shortchanging their access to these kinds of resources. And per the proposal, it seems like the temporary solution would be to switch to technology as a teacher. So for using Duolingo or Rosetta Stone, but the community aspect, the trust building, and the technical linguistic literacy support that is built and facilitated by an instructor is irreplaceable for these students. As a former foreign language instructor, I can assure you that it's not the same. Technology is merely a tool for a teacher and students, and it can help the process of learning, but it certainly cannot replace the vital role of the teacher. Ultimately, language learning isn't expendable. Spanish language learning is not expendable. And are we considering switching other disciplines to be facilitated by technological platforms? If so, I haven't seen that proposal, but overall, we need additional time before this final decision is made to wrestle with this prioritization of values and why we are not fully investing in excellent bilingual and bicultural education. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Libby Barron.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Before you start my time, I just wanted to ask, there was a parent who registered Jackie Barker, and she asked me to read her statement. Was she registered? She was unable to attend. I just don't have a way to communicate with you because the chat's off if she is on the list.
She's actually listed next after you.
Oh, okay. So is that okay if I read my statement and then her statement?
I do not have an issue with it. Is there any board member that objects? Okay. Yes, you can after this.
Okay, thanks. I'll start. Hi, my name is Libby Barron, and I have two 11th graders attending Cedar Ridge High School. My son Sam was registered for AP English and History for the entire school year. In April, he realized that he was receiving information about his AP English exam and not his AP History exam. When he reached out to his teacher, he was told to contact the AP coordinator. He received a short email saying that he would not be able to register and would not be able to take the exam. To say that he was devastated is an extreme understatement. My son is the fourth student I know about that was unable to take an AP test this spring. I assure you that I'm not extensively connected to the Cedar Ridge High School parent community. The fact that I know of 3 other students who were unable to test suggests that there are many more who the school has deprived of this important opportunity. As you know, students enroll in AP courses for 2 reasons: to push themselves academically and to obtain college credit for work they complete in high school. These students enroll with the knowledge that more will be asked of them. They work hard with the knowledge that they will reap the reward at the end of the year, the ability to demonstrate their mastery, and that mastery will be recognized by hundreds of colleges across the country, including the UNC system, which guarantees students who earn a score of 3 or higher on their AP exams will receive credit for all 16 universities within the system. The Orange County school system has long recognized the value of the AP curriculum, both the virtue of a more difficult curriculum and the financial benefit of completing the course. My family and many others are grateful for the opportunities our children have to enroll in these classes. We are concerned about meeting the academic needs of our children and are overwhelmed by the cost of higher education. We chose to take advantage of the AP courses for these reasons. At a time when classes are canceled and students are forced to work from home under challenging circumstances, we did not anticipate a system failure from our local high school that would erode its commitment to our students in yet another way. These students have worked very hard through the academic year and have continued to do so during the stay-at-home order to ensure they master the material and are prepared to perform on their AP exams. They learned that they could not have the opportunity to test, and it is deflating and infuriating. Financially, this is a major loss to us. One history course at UC cost more than $2,000. The AP exam my son was not registered for would have saved us that money. This is an especially difficult consequence to accept when the future of the global economy is so dismal. I understand errors were made, and this was not an error that affected just one student. This is a systematic problem that adversely impacted some of your best and brightest students. There need to be measures in place to prevent errors of this sort. I request a full investigation to determine what led to the disenfranchisement of our students. I further request a full explanation of how Cedar Ridge High School will endeavor to prevent this happening again next year. Specifically, I demand the answers to the following questions. Who is responsible for AP test registration? What is the role of the student, the teacher, and the AP coordinator in this process? How will Cedar Ridge High School ensure that all AP students are properly registered? I know you are all committed to the success of our children, and I ask that you demonstrate that commitment by addressing this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I will read Jackie Barker's. It is on the same issue. My name is Jackie Barker. I have a 10th grader at Cedar Ridge High School. I would like to share my child's experience this year with the way the AP testing registration was handled. Please note that the new procedures for initial registration this year were set in place before COVID-19 and are unrelated to it. The AP College Board implemented a new process this year for getting students registered for the exams. My student, among several others at Cedar Ridge High School, were unable to take some of their AP exams because of the lack of communication from the school's AP coordinator and the lack of understanding about the new procedures from teachers to students and parents. Some students were never registered to take the exams, and there is no way to register for them after the March 13th deadline. There was no communication to students or parents that one was not registered for the exam and could not be registered late. Those students who were not registered had no idea while they were feverishly studying at home during remote learning that they were wasting their time stressing out for nothing. Testing began late May, and some students did not realize until days before their exam that they could not take their exam. And the worst possible outcome was that the student would have to wait until next May when the test would be offered again. June retest dates were not an option this year because the test was being administered online, and they locked all the online exam tickets on April 20th. The child will have to wait until next May to take the exam. We are upset and angry that a mistake or an oversight like this happened. With a new procedure in place, I would expect that everything is double and triple checked. Accuracy, communication, and a constant and comprehensive of new policies are a must. Another local high school had a meeting at the beginning of the year with AP students and teachers explaining a new process in order to prevent a mistake from happening. This could have been prevented if the AP coordinator fully understood the new procedures and communicated often and accurately to AP teachers so that they knew what was expected of them and of the students in order to get each student properly set up to take an AP exam. There's always an option for students to take the class but opt out of the exam at the end of the year. One should not assume a top performing student in an AP class would decide not to take an exam and question why that would be. One should question why all the students enrolled in a class at the school are not listed on the teacher's AP College Board portal. There was a lack of responsibility about whose job it was, the teacher, the AP coordinators, or the students to register for the exam. In my opinion, all students should be registered for the exams whether they decide to take it or not. Either the teacher or the AP coordinator should be responsible for adding all the students to the AP portal at the beginning of each semester and register each student for the exam. The school has failed my students and others. Orange County school system is better than this, and I hope that in the future the school can devise a plan that no child is left behind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Okay, the last but not least speaker for tonight is Luis Royo.
Hello, I'm Luis Royo. I'm the Director of Ministries at St. Thomas More Church at Chapel Hill. St. Thomas More is member of Justice United, which is churches from northern and southern Orange County. Justice United has been working along with the board, the Orange County School Board, and for more than a year, especially focused on two issues. The first one is increasing the teacher that reflects the reality of the Orange County population, which means more teachers of color, people of color as teachers. The second issue has been increasing the number of interpreters, translators for Spanish-speaking families, and in favor of maintaining or increasing the Spanish program instead of cutting the program. And the board have been working on increasing the number of Spanish-speaking support for Spanish-speaking families. And the message with cutting the Spanish program is in the opposite direction of the effort you have for more than a year for United and many other churches. And I support many of the comments about the importance of the instruction on a second language from the early ages. And remember, as many have mentioned, Spanish is the second most spoken language in the US after English. And additionally, many English-speaking families are now aware of the importance of a second language for their kids and the importance of being connected with a culture that is not the one you belong to. This is a very new environment in the world with diversity and equity, and unity is important to us. So it's the time to send a message that every culture is important, every member of our community counts, and the Spanish-speaking program should be expanded instead of cut. Thank you.
Thank you. So I did want to give a chance back to Ms. Sonia D. Is your audio working? Do you see her online?
She's now been unmuted, yes.
Okay.
All right. You can hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Okay. I wasn't sure where I left off at, but I agree with many of what people have said already. I don't have much to add, actually. I just that I noted, did you hear about the October 15th, 2019 student achievement literacy results for grades 1 through 5? I think they tested. They saw that Black and Latinx students are scoring about the same, which is lowest out of the other races. And that's why I was saying that most of the resources should be towards correcting institutional, like the policies that created those outcomes, and actually trying to mitigate those outcomes. So in addition to working to change the conditions for which, the conditions that cause those inequalities, that inequality. I also wanted to note that I saw that the liability fund on today's agenda is $33,000, and I'm just looking for where funds could be pulled from that wouldn't affect equity as much. And it seems like this fund is for in case the school district is sued, is my understanding. So I think that would be a fun to look at, that money, $33,000. And then the policing, I don't think police should be in school. I was shocked when I heard that man talk about how that person was slammed by a school cop. And there wasn't accountability. I think what we're learning now is that police not being in schools makes us all safer. And so I think funds can be pulled from there as well. In addition to selling the mine-resistant vehicle that Orange County Sheriff's Department has, which I think is $600,000. And they have some $150,000 armored cars or something like that as well. So perhaps I agree with Ivy that that should be brought up in the discussion at the budget meeting tomorrow. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hey, Will.
Yes.
If I may, I'm getting a text from someone indicating that there are a couple of people, Spanish-speaking parents, who were hoping to speak, planning to speak, and maybe there was some sort of challenge with the registration in signing up to speak. And so I don't know the best way to solve that right now. I'm looking for their names in this attendee list.
If you could just get their names, Sarah, Todd could unmute them and we could have the interpreter speak.
So this is the challenge, is I don't see their names. So the first name is Beatriz Ponce or Molanchita Ponce. I see a Beatriz, but I don't see that last name. And then and Janet Flores. I don't see either of those names in the attendee list.
Folks who have dialed in, they appear as like call-in user 1, call-in user 2, so we don't have a way to identify them. That's why the audio only is listed on the website that way, as audio only. That's one of the limitations of the platform.
Okay, I think I'm hearing that Beatriz Vasquez might be. Can you unmute her and maybe we can check?
She is unmuted.
Go ahead, Patrice.
Yes, I am Beatriz Vasquez.
Hola Beatriz, ¿tú quieres que te interprete?
Sí, por favor.
Claro que sí.
Gracias por dejarnos estar aquí, representarme a mí y un grupo de padres que como yo estamos preocupados por el futuro de las escuelas de nuestros hijos.
Thank you for allowing me and other parents to represent our school and the future for our children.
Nos gustaría estar más enterados de las decisiones, de los cambios y demás. Queremos pedir que las clases de español en las escuelas primarias no solamente sigan, sino que también sigan con más apoyo y aporte.
We would like to be informed about the changes, about the policies, the changes. I like to have the Spanish classes to continue and they have more support and they get expanded.
El español es un idioma universal. Nos lleva a viajar por todo el universo. 5.077 millones de personas hablan español en el mundo, de los cuales 480 millones de esas personas su lengua es materna, es español.
Okay. Beatriz, me vas a tener que dar los números otra vez. So, Spanish is a universal language. We have a number of people. 577 millions people.
And 480 millions.
480 millions.
De esas personas, su lengua materna es español.
48 millions, they have Spanish as a first language.
En Estados Unidos, 50 millones de personas hablan español como primera o segunda lengua o como lengua extranjera. El 15% de la población habla español.
In the United States, 50 million people, 15% of the population speak Spanish.
El español une familias, no nos separa. Un segundo idioma te hace valer por dos personas. Te da la oportunidad de tener un mejor desempeño académico.
Spanish, ¿me repites, por favor? Sorry.
El español une familias, no nos separa.
Spanish unite us, don't divide us.
Un segundo idioma te hace valer por dos personas.
Second language makes you more valuable.
Te da la oportunidad de tener mejor desempeño académico.
It gives you the opportunity to be better academically.
Te hace tener un mejor trabajo. Puedes ascender a cualquier posición laboral más fácilmente.
It helps you have a better job. You can get a better position in a job.
Poder dominar otra lengua nos hace sentir más fuertes, inteligentes, orgullosos de nosotros mismos.
Being able to speak another language will make you feel more intelligent and proud of ourselves.
Mi hijo está aquí si quiere que lea español al inglés completamente. Pues está bien así.
Como tú quieras. Como tú quieras.
Okay. Ser bilingües nos hace excepcionales. Por eso es una base de suma importancia.
Being bilingual makes us exceptional. That's what is the base. It's very important.
El primer paso es aprender el idioma desde muy pequeños. Los estudios han comprobado que las edades entre más tempranas son las edades perfectas para poder memorizar y aprender cualquier idioma.
The early education in a second language is very important. Studies have shown that the learning as early is very important for children.
Por eso nosotros damos la importancia de tener y mantener no solo las clases de español en las escuelas elementarias, porque los niños no solo van a aprender abecedario o el 1, 2, 3.
That's why we want to continue to have those classes in the elementary, because they are not only going to learn about their ABCs or their 1, 2, 3.
Sino que también aprenden a socializar con otros compañeritos.
They also learn to socialize with other friends.
Aprenden culturas, conocen países y a través de las lecturas en español viajan.
They learn about cultures, they learn about countries, and through literacy, they also travel other places.
Aprenderán respeto y amor por otras lenguas y su gente.
They will learn respect and love for other people and other language in their own.
Como madre de niños bilingües, puedo decir una experiencia de tantas.
Like a bilingual mother, I can say that various experiences.
Mi hija, siendo una niña de primer año, bilingüe, pudo cambiar la vida de otra niña recién llegada del extranjero sin entender una sola palabra en español.
My daughter being a daughter of the first grade in elementary school, she could change the life of a fellow classmate. She had just come from another country and she could not speak a single word of English. And school was horrible for her. No one could understand her. Everyone looked her bad, and she would always cry at every moment. But my daughter found her speaking Spanish and invited her to play, showed her the rules of the games, and explained to the other kids the reasons why she cried so much. Those kids not only accepted her, but also involved her more and more to their games, and they would ask my daughter to take her and to explain her how to do things. Today, Maria feels secured, loved.
Acabó el tiempo. Gracias, señora Beatriz. Se acabó su
Thank you
tiempo.
so much. Thank you, everybody.
Was another, you have another person?
Not that I could find in the list. I think the challenge is that some people didn't understand that you need to, we were not clear, sorry, owning this, that you have to sign in and do the web version in order to be able to comment. So I think there's someone called in on a phone who wants to be able to comment, but I don't know how to tell. I just see a list of things that say call in user number. I don't know how to identify a person.
I just like to comment. I know it's not adequate, but any comments can be submitted in writing and would be available for the board to have. So anybody that was planning on speaking and for whatever technical reasons was unable to, please submit the comments and they will be shared with the board.
Si cualquier persona no pudo hablar, por favor, escriba sus comentarios y los comparte con la Junta de Educación.
Will, you're muted.
Thank you, Brenda. So I did get a message that Emily Xavier, Todd, do you see her online?
Will, it's Mark Xavier also. Both of them apparently were signed up to speak.
Yeah.
The only one I see is Mark Xavier.
Okay, can you unmute him to speak?
Done.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Mark.
First, I would like to say that, oh, I don't know, has my time started yet? Okay, first, I would like to say that I have a few things that I want to talk about is, but I would like to say the resolution was, to me, it was sort of a disrespect to the community. It appears to me that it was not worked on among each of you, among the group, among the board. It was just thrown out there because I found some things very interesting at the the paragraph before the last one. It was not miswritten, but very confusing. And to me, and I'm sure that if I'm confused, other people are as well. And also the resolution based, it says on Orange County Board of Education resolution on racial violence. I don't think that terminology is actually appropriate. It should be resolution, in my view, it should be resolution against racism, because that's what it's about, or against white supremacy. That's one thing that I wanted to mention. The other aspect also is, if what has been happening in the country, if you wanted to solve some problems, as one of the speakers mentioned earlier, he's a white guy. Orange County did not help him at all in terms of recognizing his white privilege, in terms of recognizing racism. One of the things that can be done and that can be talked about throughout the board meetings or whatever committees is the idea of having at least 30 minutes a week for all kids in Orange County to actually talk about racism and with the teachers, and so that people can be engaged and we're not raising a bunch of racist people in the county at a younger age than they can learn it. All right, that's one aspect. Another thing I want to talk about is the literacy thing. It is very interesting to me that as a Black person, right? As a Black person, I mean, I speak different languages. I don't mind the idea of having Spanish as a dual language in Orange County. That's not my issue at all. My issue is that how come that same energy, that same force? Because most of the white people that I heard speaking tonight, they didn't talk about real literacy. They talked about the idea of we are going to lose not getting engaged with people with different color, with different ethnicity, but we're going to lose that privilege of not really learning Spanish, but learning a couple of words, because it's not really at that age, believe me, at that age, the number of time that is spent at the school is not helping those kids to actually learn Spanish. It's not. So that's one thing I wanted to, this some energy should be used to actually talk about the discrepancy, the disparities with Black people in Orange County, with the students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So, Todd, do you not see Emily Xavier online?
Can Emily speak from, I mean, I don't know if they're together, but they're married, so maybe she can speak from Mark's line.
I see 3 Emilys, but none of them are Emily Xavier. And I believe Mark Xavier is the only Xavier I see on the list.
Okay, can you unmute Mark and let's see if he can hand the phone to his wife?
Done?
Yes, sir.
Can you hand the phone to Emily?
Well, she's not next to me at the moment, and I'm in at a undisclosed location.
Okay.
But I think she wanted to talk about something else. But these are the things that I wanted to mention on my.
Okay, thank you, Mark. All right. Does any other board member have any information on anybody that needs to speak or hasn't got a chance to speak that would like to speak? I did see one other message about Bernice Ponce, Ponce. Do you see that person on, Todd?
Ponce? No, only of Jose Ponce Vasquez, who we've already heard from.
Okay.
That's about Beatriz Ponce. That was her who's speaking earlier.
I'm sorry, what's that again?
Okay.
Sorry, is there someone else I should
That speaker was the person that we were able to identify who did speak.
Okay, excellent. All right. Anyone else? All right. With that, we will move on. But before we move on, I did want to say that when we do get to the information on the Spanish teaching positions, we do have a Spanish line that's set up. Todd, do you have that information that you can share?
Sorry, you want that on the screen?
Yeah, just for a minute as we go to the superintendent report and comments. And I don't know if it's translated, so we may need some translation on that.
Yeah, I have it in Spanish.
Oh, perfect.
I can say it right now. Para cuando vayamos a hablar acerca de las posiciones de español, vamos a proporcionar una línea telefónica para la interpretación al español. Si desea acceder al audio en español, por favor, marque este número, tenga papel y lápiz. Es el 541-838-0308. Y cuando se le pida, por favor, introduzca el número PIN de 341-571-194 y incluya con el signo numeral. Los usuarios no podrán hacer preguntas al intérprete porque esta no es una sección de comentarios públicos. And I don't know if I can just type that or put it in comments so that way the people can see the PIN number, the phone number and the PIN number.
If you could type it up, and when we get there, we'll let you share your screen so they can see it as well. And that way they'll have it as well, if you don't mind.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda, we have the superintendent's reports and comments. Dr. Felder?
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Atherton. I am going to defer my comments for tonight, given the time restraints.
All right. Our next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve, or a motion to approve the consent agenda?
This is Brenda. I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Marie is the second. Dr. H?
He's muted.
Dr. Halkiotis, you're muted. Okay, we'll come back to you, Dr. H. Tony McKnight?
Yes.
Brenda? Marie?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Dr. H? Dr.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And chair votes yes. The motion carries. All right. Next is our priority list with the graduation updates. Dr. Felder?
Well, can I just ask a question before we do that?
Sure.
Are we only prepared to do the interpretation for the Spanish, the topic about Spanish language, or is it possible to do for more of the call as well? I don't know like the logistics of how that's happening, but many of these topics I imagine would be of interest to everyone on the call. So
there is no reason to my knowledge that it couldn't be for all.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, Ms. Blevko. I don't.
We just need the. Are we ready to show the translation of the dial-in?
Sure, I just don't know where to post it. Let me see.
If you can, Todd, if you can give her the world and she can share it.
I share it with Todd.
Oh, okay, Todd, can you
I email him.
Okay.
He can post it, yes.
Perfect.
Si las personas que necesitan interpretación por favor, marquen este número que les van a mostrar. Yo lo voy a marcar ahora y usen ese PIN y yo voy a interpretarles. Okay. Got it. Por favor, marquen ese PIN, el número telefónico y el PIN. Gracias.
We'll just give one moment for everybody to write that down and to call into that number. That will give complete Spanish translation.
Thank you, Will.
Okay. So Todd, is the other line set up, or what needs to be done just to make sure that that is functioning correctly as we go through the next topics?
I'm also hosting that meeting as well. And I can see, it looks like Sandra may have joined that. So that'll be happening in parallel to this meeting.
Do you see others joining that besides you two?
Not currently.
Okay. Well, I'm hopeful that everybody has been able to write this down so they can listen in. Have you seen anybody else join, Todd?
No, just the two of us so far.
Okay. I'm afraid we're going to have to move on. I don't know how to help since we do not have a two-way communication. Sandra, can you just please ask if they would like to listen to go ahead and join the call now?
Para los padres que necesitan, sorry.
Okay.
Para los padres que necesitan interpretación, tenemos estos números acá, el número telefónico 541-838-0308 con el PIN 341-571-194 y el símbolo de números. Usted marca eso y puede tener todo el resto del meeting, el resto de la reunión en español.
We've just seen two new people join the call.
Excellent, excellent. All right. Dr. Felder, can we go ahead with the graduation? While we're doing that, we'll let this stay up until we're ready to display some more information to the community.
Absolutely. So good evening again, everyone. Well, it's been 3 weeks since the last board meeting, and a lot has happened in that span of time. Tonight, we actually have 4 updates. An update on the first graduation ceremonies, an update on registration, an update on food distribution in the district, and an update on the abundance of work that's underway regarding on the first round of graduation ceremonies. This slide that is projected right now provides information about the 3 June ceremonies, including date, time, ceremony option, and location, as well as rain dates. At the bottom of the page, there's a link to a website that serves as a one-stop shop for information about the June graduations. principals are here and will provide details and answer any questions you have about their school ceremonies. However, I can tell you that at all three June ceremonies, there will be some consistency. At all three ceremonies, seniors will be able to exit their cars, walk across the stage to receive their diploma, and have a professional picture taken. So at this time, I want to turn the presentation over to Mr. Stan Farrington, principal at Partnership Academy, to provide details about the graduation ceremony at his school. Mr. Farrington.
It looks like Stan is still muted.
Hello. Dr. Felder, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir, I can hear you just fine.
Gotcha. Great, great. Thank you, Dr. Felder, and good evening to everyone. As we all know, 2020 has been a very different and most unique school year, which for the high schools has led us to make to some pretty unconventional and innovative and actually really exciting decisions. Our journey to our final graduation decisions included partnering with the incredible people and agencies you have listed before you there, such as the Orange County Schools district leaders who are the best in the business. And then of course, the Orange County Health Department and Sheriff's Department. And the process really developed new and stronger community relationships for Partnership Academy and for Orange County Schools. So we're glad and really excited about the input that has been given, as well as the outcomes that we are expecting. The actual graduation plan consists of a Thursday, June 11th, 2020 graduation date. The ceremony is scheduled from 6 to 8 p.m. And we at Partnership have 10 phenomenal graduates that are raring to go. And the venue is the awesome Orange County Speedway. Vroom, vroom, we're ready to do this thing. We're excited. So anyway, wanted to also address the next, this is the slide here, that the plan. And in this plan, we certainly want you to pay attention specifically to the stage location. It's centered right on the racetrack, right on the finish line. And certainly that's the finish line for high school symbolically, but it's the starting line for real life for our students. And we're hoping to get them off to a great start. A second and more traditional ceremony we are hoping is scheduled. I'll say it's in the pandemic planning process right now. And at this point, I would like to introduce the amazing principal of Cedar Ridge High School, Dr. Carlos Ramirez.
Dr. Ramirez, you're muted.
Thank you, Stan. You're so kind. And there's an echo. Thank you, Dr. Felder, and board members for allowing this opportunity to. Is that echo just me, or is it everybody else?
We can hear it.
I can hear it too.
Okay. Try again. Thank you, Stan and Dr. Todd, is there something on my end I'm doing over here?
You are the only person unmuted.
So it's causing the echo.
You need to turn it down.
Try.
Dr. Ramirez, do you have two things open?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Let me check. Oh, I might.
It's working now. He's turned it down.
Much better.
Yes.
No, I don't have two things open. Hey, Matt, you want to go? I figure out what's going on over here.
Sure, you got it. Is that okay, Dr. Felder, if I jump in?
Go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Ramirez, and thank you to the board. I'm sorry, I'm Matt Hunt. I'm had a chance to meet many of you in person, but it's a pleasure to be here tonight. And want to thank our central office and Dr. Felder and Mr. Farrington and Dr. Ramirez too. It's been, as a new person in Orange County, it's been they've been the ultimate team players and helping me along in this process. And want to congratulate first and foremost our 319 Orange High School graduates and their families. So many incredible stories about them, and we are excited about celebrating them on Friday. Want to thank our entire school community. We've gotten a lot of feedback from both from our students, from our staff, from our families, and getting Friday together, getting the plan together and implementing it. We've sent out a host of surveys in the last month plus, from graduation location to volunteer help to traditional ceremony committee. So we've had 8 families who want to serve on the committee to help us with the traditional ceremony at a later date. And then also at home graduations. We've had a number of families who have expressed concerns just for health and other reasons and during this time. So we're excited to put those on for families. We have one that's virtually 3,000 miles away that we're excited about to meet individual family needs. We've hosted 4 campus tours with parents, 2 of them to talk about the different formats for a drive-in versus a drive-through. And then also, after we settled on the route, we had families come to give us advice on how to better the experience for their students and their families. And we've got a lot of great suggestions from families that we're implementing. We're doing it in waves of 4 different waves based on the student's alphabet. And so, but certain families needed to change their time. So we've been able to make those adjustments. A few family members asked if they could walk across the stage with their graduate. And that's something that we're going to be able to do for families that choose that option. Again, it's not the traditional ceremony at the Dean Dome. So this as Stan had mentioned, it's been exciting to be able to implement some things that you don't typically get to do. And then we'll have 3 picture locations along the drive. So the graduation will take place. It will begin at Stanford Middle School parking lot, and it will take a route through our campus. We're dubbing it a drive down memory lane, and students will have the opportunity to get their picture taken at a few locations, and then eventually get to the front of the school where they'll walk across the stage, receive their diploma, and their families. We're thrilled that their families will be able to get out of their cars, take pictures right below the stage, which is something that very few, I think, families across the country are able to do at this point. So we're excited about that. And for our board members, we are happy to have you involved in any way that you'd like to be involved. We will have a welcoming committee at the beginning of the route on the Stanford Middle School lot. And so we can provide detail for any of you who want to participate or celebrate our graduates as they enter campus. And Dr. Ramirez, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. I'm now good to go. I had an old meeting open. I have 3 screens here. I had to hunt it down. Thank you, Dr. Felder and School Board, for allowing us the opportunity to share our plans. Cedar Ridge has a unique plan in place based off of multiple stakeholder input. I want to start with the graduation committee, because these are all the members that are behind the scenes to make our two-part graduation ceremony a success. As you can see, the diverse group is made up of classified staff, teachers, parents, students, and they all been working as smoothly as possible. It's an amazing process we were able to work through, and that is due to strong communications and decision-making processes we have in place, and they're listed on the right there. If you go to the next slide, I want to cover some of the what makes our graduation ceremony a little different. We actually have one ceremony broken into two parts. One is the morning part, or morning, early afternoon, individual diploma ceremony. At this ceremony, students are simply walking across the stage with their families in front of the school and receiving their photo opportunity and then their diploma. We are allowing 2 cars per graduate. They can get out of their cars and take their pictures and then receive their actual diplomas that day. Then they'll go across the street over to the elementary school to do a photo station, and their families again can get out and take pictures with their family. In the evening, we have a drive-in group ceremony. This was at the request of students who wanted to finish off the year together, even if it was in a limited way. So we're gonna have students actually participate in the group ceremony. They will not be out of their cars, really like more of a movie drive-in. We have a ceremony placed there. You could see the different parts to it, and really excited about that. This event starts at 8:30 and ends at 9:30. It will be live streamed, and we have our 256 graduates very excited about attending. I would like to thank all the committee members and all the district staff for their support. This has truly been Herculean effort, and everyone has had their hand in this to make it work. We could not do it without their support, so thank you all.
All right, so thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ramirez, Mr. Farrington, and Mr. Hunt for providing updates with regards to the first round of graduation ceremonies at your schools. Board members, this slide just provides information about the many ways that board members can participate in the ceremonies, given the health department and state strong recommendations regarding mass gathering limitations. And so know that Tanya Lee will be following up with each of you to gather information with regards to how you might participate in one or more of these graduation ceremonies. So we are excited. I hope you sense the excitement to celebrate our 586 seniors who will be graduating in just a matter of days. And we certainly look forward to your participation. So any questions, comments, or wonderings about the first round of graduation celebrations in Orange County schools?
I'll say something. I just want to express gratitude to each of the principals and to all of the teams of people who have been providing input on this. This is an unbelievable situation, but I'm glad you've all made it special. Got to see some of the senior drive-arounds. Was that yesterday? That was fun. They drove right past my house. That was cool. So thank you for all you're doing to make it special for our seniors.
You're welcome, and thank you. It's been a team effort.
Yes, and I want to echo what Ms. Smiley said. Definitely a lot of positive feedback from the community, the engagement, being allowed to be part of the discussions, the ideas, and it's definitely evolved from where it started. So thank you all for all the hard work y'all put into this, and I'm really excited to participate and celebrate all of our seniors. All right, Dr. Felder, given the limited time, I would recommend we move and talk about the Spanish informational, if the board would permit that. Any objections to jumping to the Spanish portion?
Will, do you mind doing that by motion just to realign the agenda?
So moved. Move to move this topic to now.
Sarah with the motion, Hillary with the second. Brenda? Yes, I saw that. Tony McKnight?
Yes.
Hillary McKenzie?
Yes.
Dr. Halkiotis?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. All right. Dr. Felder?
Sure. Thank you so much. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you to every person who shared tonight. I certainly appreciate hearing everyone's comments and perspectives. And so again, thank you all for doing that. I also want to say that I am committed to diversity, equity, excellence, and access for all students. And I need to say that the impact of, or remind everyone that the impact of COVID-19 is forcing us to make some very tough decisions, of which this may be the first of many. So as a result of COVID-19, we know that we have a health crisis, we have a literacy crisis, and a budget crisis in our county. Therefore, I am recommending that we suspend or pause the elementary Spanish language program and repurpose the 6 elementary Spanish teacher positions to classroom teaching positions for at least the 2020-2021 school year. Just a little background. The elementary Spanish program was instituted in 2002. It was suspended for 1 year. So this is the first time this is a request to do so. It was suspended for 1 year in 2009 due to budget shortfalls. There are currently 6 Spanish teachers, elementary Spanish teachers in the district. One school does not have the position because they repurposed that position this school year. And so the rationale for this recommendation, as I stated, is one, again, we have a health crisis. And unfortunately, we were not able to provide an update on the work that we are doing to reopen schools. And while we're waiting for guidance from the state, adherence, we know, one of the things that we know is that we are going to have to adhere to social distancing guidelines for in-person instruction. And so what that means is that we will have to group students, have smaller groups of students for instruction. We will need more certified teachers to provide that instruction to the smaller groups of students, whether in person or online. And we know that some of our teachers, particularly those who are high risk, will not be able to return for in-person instruction. And so we have to plan for that scenario as well. So again, while I wish and hope and can pray that the pandemic is behind us, it is not. We are anticipating waves of being in and out of school. The state, while we do not have guidance, has advised us to plan for more remote learning as well as hybrid learning, which is a combination of remote and in-person. And again, for the in-person side of that, we know that we have to adhere to social distancing, which means smaller groups of students. We also have a crisis with regards to literacy. And I'm going to ask Mr. Jones to project 2 slides that should be pretty familiar to the board as you've seen these slides before. The data on these slides are sobering and disheartening, to say the least. And so this first slide is from 2018-2019 English Language Arts reading performance for grades 3 to 8. And this slide, as we can see on this slide, approximately 42% of our students in grades 3 to 8 are not proficient in literacy per the state data. But what's even more alarming is when we disaggregate the data by race. And so let's do that. So Mr. Jones, if you can flip to the next slide. This slide tells us that 60% of our African-American students are not proficient. That 64% of our Hispanic Latinx students not proficient in literacy. 75% of our English language learners, 75% not proficient in literacy. Students with special needs, 78%. Our low-income students, our economically disadvantaged students, 63% not proficient in literacy. Foster care students, 50%, half of them, not proficient in literacy. This is a long-standing issue in the district, which will likely be exacerbated by COVID-19 and summer slide or summer learning loss. And so we know it's just very difficult for me to even share the data because we know the cost for low literacy, and it has a heavy price that will impact our students for the rest of their lives. To quote a Forbes magazine article, a recent article entitled "Reading Instruction Oppresses Black and Brown Children," data like this translates into greater struggles in high school, low college attendance and graduation rates, and a higher likelihood of incarceration. In fact, we know that prisons are built based on third grade reading scores. So let's look at all the children those percentages represent and what their future holds if we don't improve and close these gaps and improve their literacy achievement. So shifting the elementary Spanish language teacher positions to classroom teacher positions will place more teachers in the classroom, thereby enabling the district to use certified licensed teachers to help reduce class sizes and avoid combination classes so that teachers have the bandwidth to navigate through the in-person and remote learning to provide high quality literacy instruction to all of our children. There are currently 6 combination classes in the district. And we also know that some classes for next school year are currently very high. We have 27 students in some of our 4th and 5th grade classes for next year. 2 classes are over class limit, 2 at 2nd and 3rd grade. And so avoiding combination classes will enable teachers to focus on 1 grade levels curriculum versus 2. And that should better enhance a teacher's ability to double down on literacy at 1 grade level. The other crisis, as I shared, is around the budget. And unfortunately, again, part of our presentation that we've been doing was to share the dire forecast with regards to our budget. And so, again, we need more teachers, but are anticipating a budget shortfall. So by repurposing these positions to fill current vacant teaching positions for next school year, based on retirements, attritions, and people leaving the district, we will have more teachers to avoid combination classes, more teachers that will allow us to adhere to the social distancing guidelines that we are going to be required to follow. Additionally, I'd like to offer that we need more teachers need to be able to leverage positions to expand our ESL family outreach office, hire a floating counselor to address the social, emotional, and mental health needs we anticipate some of our students having when they return to school. So with regards to ESL family outreach staff, right now we have one, and she's been interpreting tonight, and that would be Mrs. Sandra Blefko. And so we need to expand the work of this office for next year to at least 1 or 2 additional positions and expand Ms. Blefko's position to allow her to be 10 months to 12 months. In this work, They will be able to coordinate and help support the translations, interpretations, and help to build bridges and serve as a point of contact, additional point of contact for our families. These positions will be housed in schools such as Cameron Park in an effort to better meet our school's Latinx families' needs, while schools and offices also need to work on filling positions such as future front office vacancies with bilingual staff. And so we have to do a better job in that regard. Ideally, every school should have a bilingual family outreach coordinator. Ideally, we should expand our dual language and language immersion programs. We should also, because that can't be the only place that our children get access to and learn about different cultures. And so we also need to do a better job with regards to affording all students across all classes, not just one, multicultural curriculum and instructional resources, and use culturally relevant teaching strategies to ensure students are exposed to and develop a great understanding and appreciation for many cultures. This is not the current state in Orange County schools, but it's certainly one that I envision for the district. I, again, would also like to state that we need to hire a floating counselor for our secondary schools to help us better support the mental health and social emotional needs and concerns that our students will present once they return to school, given COVID-19. We know that SEL concerns significantly slow students' learning by up to 60%, and that students are more learning there's more learning disengagement seen in children with 2 or more adverse childhood experiences. So finally, I'd just like to state that all 6 of our elementary Spanish teachers can be retained in the district. We have positions for them. They will be offered teaching positions in the district based on their certifications and individual licenses, most at the elementary level, preferably in their current school. I can tell you that HR has met with each elementary Spanish teacher and their administrator regarding employment opportunities that will be available in the district based on their certification and licenses. And in closing, I would just like to state that as we develop our next strategic plan, so we know that this year's strategic plan is sunsetting, but as we develop our next strategic plan, it is my hope that we will really take time to consider what we envision for our children with regards to multicultural education, with regards to language acquisition, and that we will then develop a plan and put the resources and support behind it to bring it to fruition. So with that, I will end my comments with regards to the recommendation that we suspend or pause the elementary Spanish language program and repurpose the positions to support classroom teaching positions for next school year.
Thank you, Dr. Felder.
Will I have a question?
Go on.
I'll ask a question. I guess my first question is, Dr. Felder, thank you for that background. We face a dire budget situation, period. School districts do. And to me, I would rather make these trade-offs and decisions in the context of the full budget as opposed to making this decision now. And I'm curious if that, why sort of this in isolation, and if there is a way to do that.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Smiley, were you posing that question to me?
Yes. Mhm.
So, so when thinking about, again, the positions that we need for next year, with regards to adhering to what we know will be social distancing guidelines and the need for smaller groups of students. And so when you think about a class of 20 students and under social distancing guidelines, that class will look like one teacher and 9 students, or under our local social distancing guidelines, or one teacher and 13 students. Again, we know that we're going to need additional hands on deck. And so, and those additional hands on deck need to be certified licensed teachers. And so, again, the thinking is to, if we could pause the position and pause the program for 1 year in an effort to meet the demands of that the pandemic is causing us to have to address, that would be the position that we know that they are licensed teachers, they're certified, and that we can repurpose them for that work. But certainly, if we need to have a conversation and look at the budget, especially after we get confirmation for exactly what that budget will be from our county commissioners, we certainly can do that. But we were looking for, where do we have certified licensed teachers who can work with small groups of students under social distancing guidelines that we are going to be mandated. There's no getting around that to follow, and realizing that based on what we do know about next year's budget, we don't foresee having the funds to fulfill all of the teaching positions that we're going to need in order to adequately address the needs of our students.
Okay. Well, I have a couple of comments.
Go ahead, Brenda.
All right, thank you. First, I want to say, oh, the irony of having a Spanish translation during an agenda when we're talking about cutting language instruction. I just think the irony of that is rather, and I'm wondering, am I hearing that Spanish classes are the lowest priority of Orange County schools? It sounded like I heard that. And the other comment I have is that, why would Orange County schools double down on the same practices and literacy that continue to produce disparate results? I mean, why are we doubling down on something? Because we know what the results are. But so those are just my comments.
Will.
Go ahead, Dr. H.
Well, I wanted to commend Dr. Felder for basically addressing a topic that's been around for a long, long time. Every 4 years at election time, people start talking about closing the gap, raising achievement. Studies were put together, put on a shelf. Now you have a superintendent who's actually looking at this with a fine eye and pointing out the reality of the situation, that literacy continues to be a major challenge in the school system. It was a challenge long before a significant Hispanic population came to live in Orange County. It's been around a long time, over 50 years that I personally can attest to. I'd like to suggest that I'm fully supportive of the superintendent's recommendation, but you've heard me say this before, and I'm going to say it again. If we feel strongly about saving a program, then I think the board needs to stand up and say, we're going to use fund balance to save portions of that program we want to use. And I will remind this board that 8 years ago, during a collaboration meeting at the central office at 200 East King Street, the chair of the Chapel Hill Carborough School System proudly announced that they had reduced their fund balance to zero, and there was no punitive action taken against them by the Board of County Commissioners. What the Board of County Commissioners have currently offered the Orange County schools isn't even enough to cover the continuation budget. And while people may have wonderful ideas of discussing and reasoning with the Board of County Commissioners, if I'm not mistaken, state law forces the county commissioners to approve a budget by the end of June. That's by state law. They have no choice in that matter. That is what has to happen. So I'm just putting that out there. I would like to see us support Dr. Felder's recommendation, but also look at what we can salvage from the program of keeping Spanish in our elementary schools by dipping into the fund balance and doing exactly that. And that's what I'm throwing out there.
Mr. Atherton?
Hillary?
Okay. So I am here tonight with a pretty heavy heart that we are having to make choices like this between proficiency in literacy versus our Spanish language program. I'm holding that tension really close to my heart. And I know that our superintendent really values world language and has made this proposal with a lot of care and a lot of value for our Latinx community. And I also understand the hard-fought battles for things like translations. I mean, this meeting tonight is an example. It's been, you know, kind of clunky, and even though all the best intentions are here to be able to have this be translated well for our Spanish-speaking families, it's not as smooth as our English-speaking ones yet, because we haven't historically done it, and I'm regretful for that. So I have to say that I actually agree with Dr. Halkiotis. I would like to probably see this to support Dr. Felder, but I am not ready to give up on the Spanish program either. I would also like to talk about dipping into fund balance for this. It feels like, and Commissioner Markopoulos said to me this weekend, this was the time that fund balances were made for. We are in a crisis. We are in a crisis of health and literacy and racism, and I don't want to let any of those go unchecked. And tomorrow night, I'm planning to speak in public comment at the Board of County Commissioners to express my feelings about the fact that our schools are being funded in a way that is making us make these kinds of decisions. And I hope that community members listening tonight will join me there in asking them to delay their budget approval. I know they have to do it in June, but they can delay it by a couple of weeks to try to sift through all of the access that they have to money in the county to see if they can fund us more than the manager is currently recommending. So I am holding everyone in my heart. I think that there are many of us that are struggling with this decision and how we best serve all of the many needs in our district. And I'm going to keep fighting until we have no other options.
Well, I want to say I agree with Steve. We haven't had a problem with digging into the fund balance in the past. We dug in it in August at the beginning of the school year. We can certainly dig into it now.
Will, can I?
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
Just a point on the fund balance first before I say the other thing I was planning on saying, which is the fund balance is basically like our rainy day fund for one-time expenses. It is pouring, like it is going to cost us what, $81,000 a month for the PPE alone. That's the estimate just for that piece. We are going to decimate the fund balance one way or another from how I see the expenses of putting all of this into practice. So I really worry about us relying on the fund balance for this right now. I'll be honest about that. I want to have a bigger conversation about the budget. I want to thank everyone who came to public comment tonight. I want to apologize for the additional trauma and stress that both the statement that we removed from the agenda as well as this topic have added to the trauma and stress that everyone is already experiencing. I think that one of the speakers said that we missed the step of seeking community input, and I think that is correct. I think we need to, these decisions are not easy, they are real. It is a very difficult situation, but I think the only way we make the best decision is by involving families and teachers as well in making these decisions. And so that that is a reflection that I have on sort of our process and what I would like us to see as we look forward to a very difficult budget, very difficult decisions. I would really like to see us prioritize involving the community and making them fully aware of these things and giving them a voice in that process. I want to say that I know that Dr. Felder is here because she has a heart for equity and for doing right by our students, our Black and Latinx students, our economically disadvantaged students, and believes passionately that literacy is a civil right. I want to say to the people on this line, just to put another angle on the data that was shared earlier, that if you are Latinx, you have a better shot of learning how to read in 96% of North Carolina counties, or school districts, excuse me. That 34% of Latinx kids are grade level proficient in reading grades 3 through 8. And it is, for Black students, it is 36%. It is the same, it is a shared problem between our Black and our Latinx community. If you are economically disadvantaged, you have a better shot of learning to read in 91% of North Carolina counties. This is a crisis. The literacy, the reason that Dr. Felder is so passionate about that is because it is a crisis. So I wanted to say that. And then I wanted to say that it is really hard for me to imagine all of the parents who spoke today of the cultural importance and the family connection importance of that our Spanish teachers play. They shouldn't be the only ones playing that role. They shouldn't at all. But in many cases, they are playing a really, really big role in connecting Latinx families to schools. And I can't imagine sort of removing that in the absence of things to do it better. When I think about our equity commitment and removing barriers, when I think about the importance of family engagement, especially when we're going to be partly online, in supporting our literacy. You know, when I was thinking about it really narrowly and simply as like learning Spanish language and the like 40 minutes a week, just like the language acquisition, it was one thing to me. When I'm thinking about the broader set of outcomes, you know, I'm thinking about it really differently. One of my daughters, maybe it was 2 years ago, she had a new student in her class who only spoke Spanish. And on his first day, he was throwing furniture, so something very, very disruptive in the classroom. And I said, honey, you know how in Spanish class you can't understand what's happening and you can't understand the teacher and you get so frustrated. Imagine if all day were like that, you know? She understood that better because she had been in Spanish class. My other daughter, we were talking last week about what my kids' favorite songs were this year at school. They were talking about like music class. But one of my daughters said it was the Peruvian dance that I danced to in at the cultural festival. those things matter for my white kids, you know, but the thing that matters most to me is how we're building these bridges in schools with families who speak other languages. And I find it really, really hard to picture doing this without, Dr. Felder, I trust you so deeply. When you say we're going to come up with a plan, like I know you will, I know we will. But this district hasn't earned people's trust yet. Like as a district, we are historically very, very bad at this. And so that's what I sit with, like the amount of information that I have. Sorry, that was very long, but that's what was on my mind.
Will, it's 10:03.
Yes, do we have?
I'm so sorry.
Yes, I know. I moved to extend till 10:30.
Right, do we have a second? Sorry, well, who seconded? Was that you, Hillary?
Sarah.
Oh, Sarah. Okay, we have a motion from Brenda for to extend to 10:30. A second by Sarah. Hillary?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Brenda?
Yes.
Dr. Alkiotis?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. The meeting has been extended by 30 minutes, or till 10:30, I should say.
What's next?
Sorry, Will, I have one more thought, if that's okay.
Yeah, I was just saying if somebody else.
I think the scale of the social distancing and needing for smaller class sizes is so massive that these 6 people are not the whole solution to that problem. And so I think we need a whole solution. Like when you're describing, Dr. Felder, how that's going to have to be, I'm like, is it all of the specials teachers? Is it like, how on earth do we do it? So
Mrs. Smiley, it may be me. I may have to take a class. All of central office may have to take a class. Okay? So when we talk about small groups of students, and it's just so unfortunate that we weren't able to go through the full presentation because we have pictures of what it looks like and what it's going to look like next year. We can show you what it's going to look like on our buses. We get into the budget and how much this is going to cost us. There's a balance. I can tell you it's not enough money in the fund balance to get done what we need to get done if we open schools next year. And so, yeah. And improve literacy because that's something we have to do. That data compels us to do something. We cannot continue to send kids forward without being proficient in literacy. It impacts their entire life. Their entire life. They're building prisons based on 3rd grade reading data. So, you know, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It just troubles me to my core. And I just want, and yes, we should have a budget discussion and we would have some of that tonight because it is bleak. It really is. And so I'm prepared to teach next year. If that's what I need to do, that's what I will do. And I commit everyone in central office will take a class if that's what it takes. But we don't have enough people right now, and we can't just put anybody in front of our students. We need certified, licensed teachers in front of our students. In order to double down on the literacy. And what literacy? Yeah, we have to look at what we're doing. That's why we are filling the gaps in what we have and looking at upgrading what we have to ensure in terms of literacy curriculum to ensure that we have a blended curriculum that will work well for our students in either environment. We currently don't have that. That has a price tag attached to it. But it's work that we have to do. If we say, kids can't wait. They get one shot. We cannot wait to do right by them with regards to increasing their literacy achievement. So I don't know if Rhonda Rath wants to jump in as the CFO and provide any additional information regarding next year's budget, but I invite her to do so.
Hi,
Hi, thank you, Dr. Felder. I appreciate everyone's comments, and Ms. Smiley, I appreciate, the items that you pointed out and what we have before us. We do have a bleak budget year ahead of us. One of the items that we didn't get able to talk about is that right now they have actually adjusted the forecast for our revenues of what the state is actually going to receive in this fourth quarter downward over 6.5%. And what they are projecting for next year is 10% reductions. And so what that equates to is that we are going to see reductions in not only our local budget, which we know of based upon our discussions with our commissioners, that at our last interactions with them, they weren't even planning to fund our continuation budget. If that is the case, we will have to utilize fund balance to be able to balance our budget this year to the tune of roughly $350,000 to offset our retirement and benefit increases that we know are coming. I am concerned of the impact that we will have from state and federal funding sources in the next year. We don't have any definite numbers at this time, but based upon these forecasted revenues that we are seeing being put out, I don't think it's a stretch to anticipate as much as a 10% reduction in our budget from the state and the federal for next fiscal year. In order for us to maintain at the level that we have now, if these funding sources are cut, we will be looking to fund balance. And I too share the concern of this PPE and the significant cost of that, as well as the costs associated with the social or physical distancing in our classrooms and our buses. Those concern me. And, I reiterate exactly what Dr. Felder has stated, that we don't have enough fund balance to cover all of these. And it would be my desire and my hope that we would not have to be having these types of conversations ever. But unfortunately, based upon the times that we're in and that our economy is in, we are faced with making some tough decisions.
Hillary?
Rhonda, can I ask what our fund balance is currently?
Yes, thank you. That's a great question. Our fund balance, total fund balance was roughly 4.6 million. Of that, we had assigned all but approximately, it was $2.5 to $2.7 million that is available to be appropriated.
Okay.
And utilized in other manners.
Thank you. That's helpful.
So Rhonda, in that same vein, I know that when we talked to the commissioners about this problem, we talked about cash flow, especially when the state is late in paying or federal, about how much of that the 2.7 is needed to cover those. Because what I'd hate to do is we talk about burning that down and all of a sudden we don't have payroll to float. And I know everybody's probably surprised by hearing that, but we do have to float the government for some of these funds. Do you know about how much that is?
Yeah, our payroll runs about 2 million to 2.1 million per month from our local, to fund our local positions.
And can you tell us a little bit about the enterprise fund and its amount and how that fits into this picture as well? I mean, that is a different fund that's used more for after school and things like that. Has anything been looked at that on how that's going to be impacted as well?
Are you referring in particular to the school nutrition fund, or are you We do have 2 enterprise funds. I'm not
Oh,
sure what you're
yeah, not the
asking.
nutrition one. I know the nutrition is not in a good state either, but the after school and community relations type of enterprise fund.
You know, we're still evaluating that guidelines and seeing what those guidelines and recommendations are going to be for the next school year. If you are um, referring to how will these programs be impacted and being able to sustain those, because they are fee-based programs and they are funded based upon the fees that we're able to charge for our after-school and summer camp programs. So that is something, that we are looking at and considering because if we aren't allowed to continue those programs, we will have to take some looks at those areas as well and determine our, processes for going forward. It is my hope that any guidelines that we receive would enable us to be able to offer some sort of after school or summer camp services to our students. And at this time, we've not been told that it is a definite no. But of course, we are watching those guidelines and those recommendations to know how to account for that.
Okay, thank you. Hillary, you have your hand up still? Oh, I'm sorry, it's on the. Tony McKnight, do you have any comments? I haven't had a chance to see if you had any.
Well, I totally support the superintendent's recommendation, but I'd like to sort of, I know I can't rub a crystal ball or anything, but I'd like to see those positions, sort of be an assurance that those Spanish positions will come back in the following year.
So as chair, I do have a few comments. I just wanted to make sure everybody got a chance. I agree with Ms. Smiley and many of my other board members about meeting the cultural needs should be an effort of the overall school. It's unfortunate that we are in the state we are where we're looking at being very dependent in our Spanish programs to meet only that, to meet that need. I do have great concerns about our Spanish-speaking students that are in those classes and where they are very successful, able to communicate. And I do think we need to figure that part out to ensure that there is Spanish regardless of if there's official programs or not, that they're able to participate, be successful, and be engaged in all of the activities that other students are allowed, removing those barriers. I do think also that we have to figure out, these 6 positions that we keep talking about. I do worry as well on reduced classroom sizes and how that impacts the rest of all of those programs as mentioned earlier. I don't think this will be the only program we're having a very difficult discussion on. And definitely we've got to figure out what the bigger plan is and how that gets implemented. Because we cannot go backwards on some of these items that we as a board committed to moving forward, especially as we look at the equity and all of these barriers. One of the questions I had, Dr. Felder, is, when we look at the Spanish program and we're looking at these 6 positions, were there other areas that you considered besides these, the Spanish program, and thoughts of what other programs you had looked at, or just trying to understand why Spanish was picked first, if you will.
So yes, again, we started with these positions because we realized that we need licensed, certified teachers, not because they teach Spanish, but because that's where the need is in order to accommodate the social distancing guidance that we're going to have to adhere to. And yes, we are going to have to perhaps look at other licensed certified teachers that we can shift to support smaller groups of students. And so again, this is just the beginning of probably a lot of tough decisions and conversations we're going to have in order to meet the instructional needs of our students, given the social distancing guidelines we are going to have to adhere to. Well, recognize that 6 positions, it's compared to, I think tonight we looked at all of the vacancies. We have a lot of vacancies. Don't know yet how many teachers are going to come back. We know some of our teachers, even if they want to, then they're high risk and they're not going to be able to come back in an in-person environment. But if we are in person and we have to have staff to be able to meet our students' needs. And, you know, unless the governor closes schools again for instruction, and right now that's not the case, we are operating in the mode of we're going to open, and we have to be ready for both in-person and remote, and it has to be seamless and not clunky, and we need the staff, and we can't just put anyone in front of our children. We need licensed, certified staff. That's why I said I had to dust off my license as I may be needed to work with a group of students. And if that's what I need to do, I have no problem with doing that. But I suspect, and I hope you gleaned from the information that our CFO shared, the forecast is bleak. And I pray to God that it changes. But right now we have to operate in what we know. And while we are waiting for guidelines from the state, there are some things we know. And we can't get away from the smaller class size because of social distancing. We can't get away from all of the safety precautions, the masks, the thermometers, all of those things that we're going to need in order to meet our students. The sanitizer alone. You know, we're even talking about how do we bring warm water, because we know, I've had students tell me, I don't like washing my hands in cold water. It's like, how are we going to encourage them to wash their hands frequently when that's difficult? The bus alone, I wish Ms. McCulley you could see the diagrams, to see the visual, to go from a 72 passenger bus to only being able to hold maybe 12 kids. That's more routes, that's more gas, that may mean more bus drivers. To feed our children, we're in a deficit right now. You would have heard that in the presentation. There's been a request from the board to share what we're spending on food. We know that's a basic need. There can be no instruction if kids are hungry, but there's a price tag to that. And so we've got a lot of, and that's just the known. We don't know what the unknown items are. So there's a lot to figure out. And as I said, I don't come to this decision lightly at all. I totally value world languages. I have 2 Latino grandchildren, Cain and Corey. They are fluent in Spanish. And this is heartbreaking. This is not a position. I know it's difficult. But I also know that we will likely be having more difficult conversations given the budget. And that's all we have to work with is our budget. And when I look at our fund balance, I think of it as having lived paycheck to paycheck. I know what that's like. We're just one paycheck away from not having, as I shared with the county commissioners. I'm concerned about that. Certainly it's there and we'll use it. Of course we'll use it. We don't have a choice.
but it's not the only answer. It's not robust fund balance to see us through everything. So with that, I
And we're 5 weeks
yield the
away.
floor.
And we're 5 weeks away from opening a school.
5 weeks?
5.
Oh yeah, July.
Yes.
What I wanted to ask is, did we look at the French and Latin, languages? That was just a thought. Spanish, I've just thought about French and Latin as well. Those are languages. But so anyway, whatever. I've already decided what I'm going to do.
Sarah, you had a question, Sarah?
Yeah, I just wanted to say again that because this won't solve the whole problem, I would much rather look at this in concert with all of those difficult budget decisions and make them together rather than piecemeal. I think if we'd say, first it's Spanish, now it's, I'm making this up, the art program, it's gone. Like this is like death by 1,000 cuts, as opposed to here are all of our choices as a community. What do we do? I also think that if this is what we have to do, and I don't know that it is, but if it is, that I would really, really, really be uncomfortable with that unless we found other resources, people in buildings to do many of these other things that our Spanish language teachers are doing right now. And I would like us to look seriously also at the, does it cost more to run dual language? Like we have a dual language rating list. Could we have more dual language? Just all of those other things as well at the same time.
Hey, Will?
Yes, Dr. Alkiotis?
I think the county commissioner has said at one point that if we shouldn't really worry about budget shortfalls, that they would step in and help us if we had to use our fund balance to meet the needs of our children. So why don't you just call them to task on that and check them out, see if they'll do it.
One told me that this weekend.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, Hillary's heard it too. Let's do it.
We'll know tomorrow if they vote.
You'll know if you use your fund balance, if they'll come to your rescue. That's when you'll know. You won't know tomorrow. You'll know right immediately. Go ahead and help the kids of the school system.
And the county does have to approve their budget by July 1st unless the two boards agree to a later date.
Been that way for a long time.
So I have a question. So if we cut the Spanish program, so will we continue to have the dual language at New Hope?
Yes, Mrs. Stevens.
Okay.
And to the point made earlier, that is the ultimate goal. Can we expand dual language? Can we implement immersion programs? And so as we plan out the next strategic plan, I envision that those goals be part of our strategic plan. Absolutely.
$30.
10/26.
We got to do something. Come on,
We
Mr.
got a
Chair.
roofing contract too that needs to be done.
Yeah, I'm gonna move on that approval if we don't do something.
Move it, Brenda.
All right, I'll move approval of the roofing contract.
Second.
Voted on the floor, Mr. Chair.
I hear you, Brenda. I got to take notes on this. So we got a motion from Brenda, a second from Dr. Halkiotis for the approval of the roofing. Tony McKnight?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Dr. Halkiotis?
Yes.
Brenda?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, that is approved.
I also heard that has a $35 million fund balance.
Is there time to address the stipends?
We would need a motion to.
We're getting a bit out of order, obviously, but if the board's wanting to move to address other items, then I'm not going to stop you, but you obviously still have the pending issue with the Spanish position.
Well, an information for tonight, Jonathan. It is not an action item.
Right.
I thought we had a majority of board members that agreed to support the superintendent on the Spanish instruction piece.
But he changed it.
Yeah, it can be changed. It's the board's will. If the board wants to make an action item, it can. If the board would like to wait till the next meeting, it can.
Well, it's listed as an action item. I know you.
No, that was the last agenda. It was updated.
It was updated. It was.
Mhm. I would advocate for not making a decision tonight and waiting to, we know that there were some people who were unable to call in and speak and wait to hear their perspectives.
Agreed.
I agree.
Great. Well, then there's one last item. I know it's important with this insurance. I'd like to move the approval of the North Carolina School Board's Trust Errors and Omissions Liability Fund. We need that.
That was your consent, guys. That was
Consent agenda.
That's already been approved.
Done.
Good.
approved.
Word about that. Okay, well, then it's, we got 1 minute. I'm going to.
So do we need the stipend? Stipend is how we're paying our teachers and everybody that's on delivering food.
Motion to approve, Will.
Second.
Okay, Tony with the motion, Dr. Halkiotis with the second. Brenda?
Yes.
Dr. Halkiotis?
Yes.
Hillary? This is the
Mm-hmm.
stipend. It is the second one, first one on action item J.
Are there any staff members that feel like they need to say anything about this before it's voted on?
Dr. Felder?
Yes, I was unmuting myself. Sorry for the delay. Mrs. Rath, there she is.
Yes, we have heard input from some staff members regarding was that we suspended at this time because the governor has moved us out of the stay-at-home shelter-in-place order. As a result of that, I move to recommend that we suspend it with the understanding that if we do move backwards or move back, that we would bring this back before the board for discussion. When we brought it before you, on April the 6th, the intent was to hug the governor, and also the intent was for this not to be indefinite.
Right.
Okay, great.
Motion to extend by 5 minutes. Sorry, are we able to do this right now?
We already have a motion. On the
Oh, we
floor.
do. Sorry about that. Yes.
Okay, Hillary, you said yes?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, Dr. Let's see, Tony?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. The motion passes to suspend the stipend.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Ms. Stevens and a second from Dr. Halkiotis. Sarah?
Yes.
Okay, Tony McKnight?
Yes.
Brenda?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Dr. Halkiotis?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. This meeting is now adjourned. I appreciate everybody's efforts and discussions tonight. Have a good rest of your night.
Good night.